Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm back this week. I'm your host. My name is Brian Vitale. Joining me, we've got the full crew. We have Josh Torres.
Again, Brian.
Mikhail Benani.
Death to Kronos.
Adam Vitale.
Hello.
Xiaomin Wu.
Ross.
And James Glizio.
Hey, folks.
So, thank you all who was here last week for covering the Nintendo Direct, because I know that those podcasts are always quite spicy. Though I guess for Nintendo Directs, maybe it wasn't the biggest we've had, but every Nintendo Direct ends up coming with a lot of RPG announcements, or at least updates, news, all sorts of things. So I wasn't here. I haven't listened to that podcast. I'll be honest. I assume you focused on like Dragon Quest VII Reimagined is the big one.
Yeah, me and Adam talked about it quite a bit, and then we realized, oh shit, there's like the first news story, and we have to keep on moving with the podcast. We should probably keep on going.
And Fire Emblem. I think those are the two biggest.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
Fire Emblem.
So, for sure.
I will admit that the Fire Emblem made me finally like go out in this last week and get a Switch 2. I had some GameStop credit when I went and got one. 'Cause I wanted that for Pokemon because I don't want to play that on a Switch 1, and then of course for like Metroid Prime 4 and Fire Emblem and all that stuff. So I'm finally ready to go back into that.
It's increasingly becoming a better option to just get it now, because it just seems like prices are just going to go up inevitably again. Like I don't think Switch 2's had a price hike yet, but I think it's. I don't know if it's going to happen before or after holiday. It's not going to go down, but it's.
They keep increasing the accessory pricing and stuff like that. I think the Pro controller is nearly $100 US right now, or 90 something maybe.
Right.
And wasn't there some amiibo now $40 US or something? That's insane for the like amiibo figure quality you get.
Yeah, go get a
I guess I'm going to prison. I guess I'm going to prison. I'm gonna buy those amiibo spoofers, I guess.
Well, there you go. We
You
did not
here, admitted. Recording.
that was off chop. He didn't say shit. Yeah. So I'm wondering if they're gonna do this inevitable Switch 2 price increase before or after the holiday. Don't know.
Look, if Nintendo jacks up the price for the Switch 1, I guess it's gonna go up. I mean, there's always the thing that, old hardware is gonna go down in pricing. But if old hardware is going up, then I guess everything's
that
go
is
up.
a bygone era now, surprisingly.
Yeah. It's a question of when, not if anymore.
I mean, it seems so contemporary to me, but like, the lifespan of a console, Sony would bundle in whatever first party game was contemporary at the time. You'd at least get that bundled in, even if the price didn't go down. But nowadays, it's just like, well, you're never going to have a better opportunity to get one because it's not going to go down. The bundles are probably not going to change that often. So there you go. Go ahead, James.
You basically for console prices, if there's ever any hope for them to go down over time, we gotta hope somehow, and I'm not crossing my fingers here. We gotta hope somehow that Intel's fab business unshits itself, because the core of the issue is TSMC is the only fab people use for that level of electronics, and because they have a limited amount of fab space, they can charge whatever they want for wafers. So it's like there needs to be competition in that space, but it's legitimately the most complicated thing that we do as a species. So
I mean, it's not in our news lineup this week, but they're just kind of hot off the heels of the recent announcement from Microsoft to raise Xbox prices again in the US.
Well, that's because of tariffs.
I mean, that's not because of that. You're right. It's because of tariffs in the US. But either way, it ties back to the conversation that consoles, even if they're 5 years old, are just increasing in price, rather than decreasing. Historically,
did this Switch ever get a price cut, like a true MSRP cut?
No,
nope.
It didn't.
Nope.
At the very end, it got that price increase because of the tariffs. So
yeah. Fun.
Their price cut is basically just the holiday bundle where they give you a game quote unquote free, but what they did is it used to be Mario Kart, but then they gave you Mario Kart with the non-OLED model, so you were essentially I don't think it was ever worth buying the non-OLED model when the new one existed, but yeah, they never did like an actual price cut. I don't recall them even doing like a limited time discount or anything. It's just buy it at full price.
Hmm. Well, that's enough for preamble. So, into this week's episode of the Tetracast, thank you all for covering all the news last week. And of course, into this week, because we're going straight from PAX and Nintendo Direct into TGS. So we're going to touch on that starting this week, and go heavy into TGS announcements starting next week. The main topics this week. This is going to be more of a review, impressions focused episode. This is our number one most anticipated game for the site for this year, released on Friday, and that is Trails in the Sky First Chapter. So I think all of us here have either played, are playing, or plan to play Trails in the Sky First Chapter. I think Adam, you're the one off, but you played the original, so you can at least talk to that. So we have a lot of people on staff that have touched this game, either in terms of guide access. Junior Miai wrote the review for us. Time, didn't allow him to come onto the podcast this week because he's based in Japan. So I have no idea what time it is there, but not a conducive time for him to be on the podcast. So his written thoughts are up on the site, and it's really kind of a cool thing to see because he came into Trails First Chapter as a complete series newcomer. The sort of thing where it's like, I'm going to put this off until I'm ready to dive in. Oh, here's a perfect place to jump in. Let's have our reviewer for our RPG site come from that perspective. So the written review on the site comes from that. However, at least 5 of the 6 of us here have returned to the series with Trails First Chapter, and that's kind of, I guess, going to be how this podcast is framed. I do know that James specifically wrote up some thoughts on the RPG site as well for the veteran perspective, quote unquote. But I think all of us here will have a certain amount of ideas about what we think about the remake compared to the original, the series in general, Falcom in general, all those sorts of things. And then we'll go into, just to put it here as a programming note, another release from this week, Towa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree. So that'll be topic number 2. So click to the next timestamp if that's what you're interested in. But we're going to dive headfirst into Trails in the Sky, First Chapter. I know everyone here has been playing it, except Adam. I'm going to hand it off to James just arbitrarily at the beginning because you did write up the veteran perspective, quote unquote, for the site. And then, of course, we'll hand the mic off as the discussion progresses. So, Trails in the Sky First Chapter. I don't want to cede what you want to talk about, James, in terms of story, in terms of presentation, in terms of the reimagining of the game itself. Just you've been playing it. Did you have it before the release, or have you just been playing it as it launched?
Oh, I had it before the release. Basically, I as soon as I finished Silksong, I hopped right onto the code, and I finished it 2 days ago. I want to say, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's a lot to talk about with the remake. I think the best way I can sum it up is that while I was always excited for the remake, I had a little bit of healthy skepticism. Like always with remakes, you just never know what they're gonna change. If you're gonna gel with the changes. I was concerned about how the spirit and the core identity of Trails in the Sky would come across in this remake. And if you've read my veterans perspective, my take is, yeah, they just nailed it. I'm shocked. Legitimately, they've made changes, but none of the changes they've made have a negative impact on what the original game was trying to do. Even the combat, I was worried that they were going to overcomplicate the combat to make it more specifically Daybreak or Reverie or anything like that. And there are changes that obviously bring it closer to that style, but the way that combat feels, it's not the same as the original, not quite. But a lot of what we're when you think of the original Trails in the Skies combat and what you're specifically planning while you're in battles, what's the main things you're focusing on? Well, elemental weaknesses is one thing. There are elemental weaknesses in later Trails games, but it feels to me it's always felt like they've never been more important than in the original trilogy. And they are still very, very important here. There is the stagger system, but it doesn't feel as broken as in other Trails games, and it feels fairly well balanced. And I do like this is going to be controversial. I know some people are already not a big fan of the way that the turn bonus system has changed and how you steal it, but I actually do kind of like how it works in this one, because it's not just, oh, you pop an S craft to steal a turn. It's like, oh no, your regular crafts can be used to steal turn bonuses from enemies you hit. So sometimes you might want to use a weaker craft to just steal a bunch of turn bonuses. So then you can use an S craft, or on your next turn, you can use a zero art or something like that. And it's just fascinating stuff. The other
I
thing,
guess too. I guess I'll hop in and explain that for people who don't know what turn bonuses are, because that's just it's a term that doesn't necessarily describe what it is off the bat. But in the Trails in the Sky games, there are sometimes whether it's on your turn or an enemy's turn, you'll see it on like an action order timeline in battle, where there are certain types of special bonuses that can be randomly allotted on a turn, sometimes represented by like a yellow exclamation mark, meaning that whenever an enemy or foe acts on that turn with that yellow exclamation mark, that means that their attack will be a crit. Um, Sometimes it'll just say like the symbol with 0. That means that your magic spells, the arts, uh, typically, normally, when you're casting them, there's a certain amount of delay time. So, like when you're casting like an air spell, an airstrike spell, for example, sometimes you might have to you start casting it and you have to wait 2 turns for it to fire off, and it'll take a certain amount of like EP instead of MP, like in other RPGs. Well, that 0 turn bonus means that you'll immediately cast that spell at 0 uh, cost, and then there's other turn bonuses like that. Those are just like 2 examples. But as James was saying, that you can actually stack these. Like, say there are 2 enemies in front of you that both have, one is the yellow exclamation mark, one is a 0, and they're about to like act soon, like in 3 to 4 turns. And what this remake actually lets you do is there are certain abilities and spells that have like a modifier called steal turn bonus on them. So if you hit them with that, then you get both of those modifiers on that same character. So on their turn, they can cast a magic spell that will crit, that has no delay time for 0 EP cost. But this can also it's like a seesaw battle, because if your turn is coming up with those bonuses, enemies can respond and try to steal your turn bonus as well. So you have to be vigilant about, like, did they hit me with something that stole my turn bonuses? So I just wanted to hop in there and kind of talk a little bit about that, so for people who didn't know.
I do like how on brand it is for us to jump in straight into like the gears, the mechanics, the underworking,
Yeah.
like nuts and bolts compared to it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
obviously, one thing that we've touched on several times to the launch of this game, how is this is perfectly suited launching endpoint to a series that has now been releasing interconnected entries for 20 years. When did Trails in the Sky PC first come out? 2004? I'm trying to remember.
2004, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, in a vacuum. I've played the original. I'm up to date on US releases. And I'm revisiting through this remake. My general comments, without going into too deep, is that it's the sort of remake where it feels like it's a game that I've already played before, in terms like, this is not Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is not Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. It's telling the same story. And we were talking about how could they have added to it or changed it in ways that we thought might have compromised it. Maybe that's too strong a word. But all the additions are subtle. The additions aren't kind of as fan servicey as like some of the the versions that added like Yuna to the Crossbell games,
Yeah,
things like that.
and I
Go ahead.
mentioned in my like veterans perspective that I actually really dislike that they did that with the Crossbell games. I've always have. I do not like that they did that.
My friends and I still joke about it. We don't like it, but we joke about it.
Yeah. And thankfully there are references to later games here, but none of it's in the script. It's just like there's like some late game CGs talking about specific events, and it's like in the context of those CGs, you might see a character or two from later games that have mentioned in later games that they did actually play a part in certain events. The game's like, and even then those specific characters are like off to the corner, and like you won't notice them unless you were looking for them in the first place. And I vastly prefer that to what they did in Crossbell, because that's respecting the original integrity of the game, the original game as it was showcased, while still acknowledging like future context that was given. And that's how you handle it. Not whatever the hell they did with Crossbell.
Yeah, I agree. But I agree with James too. Like I've been playing it about a little over 20 hours. I'm not done with it. I'm working on other stuff, but it's really because James and I have played through many of these games, and we know how as with Crossbell is the example with the Azure duology, the Evo versions of them. Like this is not the first time that Falcom has re-released uh, a version of their Trails games, like the evolution games for versions of their older games, for examples, were like sort of not really like the whole remake, like a whole new graphical style and gameplay. But there are certain like even more subtler changes, like in those evolution titles, where they reworked the art style, the art portraits to have like a more contemporary anime style, and then the rework to their original soundtracks. There's something in the Falcom community where people fear the evolution games in terms of like how they handle their original soundtracks, because they kind of amp up the tempo, their spirit, to make them kind of more, I guess, more action oriented is probably the closest way I can like describe them without just pulling out the tracks when you compare and contrast them from the original versions to the evolution versions. So like one of my main initial fears with Trails in the Sky first chapter was like, if they're redoing the music, I really hope they really retain that spirit and feel of Trails of the Sky first chapter's OST, because that is one of the things that really makes that game special to me, is that it is not a game about a world ending crisis. It is a very low stakes, comfortable journey around the land, and you're not worrying about like that you're not worrying about like Estelle's hometown like got destroyed at the beginning, and you're on a tale of like revenge against God, or something like that. It's like, no, you're just these two kids running around like a liberal and trying to become senior bracers, and trying to uh, prove themselves as capable adventurers by going around the land and investigating um, like regional problems around there. And it's not like some grandiose traditional
Yeah.
fantasy RPG plotline.
It
So
eventually ramps up, but
it does, yeah.
not to a degree that like you might normally expect, and that's what makes it special. And that
Yeah.
the other thing is, I was very worried with all the comments that Kondo made about how long the remake was going to be. And now I know he was accounting for the fact that there's a new game plus exclusive mode that increases every enemy's level by 50. And there's a trophy, there's an achievement / trophy attached to it. So that's probably what he was thinking of.
Yeah.
It's really not that much longer than the original. I idled a little bit, like maybe like 4 or 5 hours, and I beat the game like 100% in 49 hours. Whereas my original Trails in the Sky first chapter, the original first chapter, not the remake first chapter, I'll just say FC, playthrough back in the day was like 39 hours. And it probably would have been even less time for the remake if I used turbo mode a bunch, or I guess high speed mode a bunch. The one thing I do want to say as an aside is that I'm very happy that this feels like the first like Trails game I can play where I don't feel like I have to compulsively just use turbo mode the entire game, because the animations are actually quick and snappy enough and look good enough, like without using the high speed mode, that I didn't really feel the need to use it that much.
Yeah, I use it
Which
here and there, but it's not like I use it through the whole thing. I mean, but a lot of the
I
recent
think
Trails games, I do use it a lot.
I think I use it like to travel to locations quickly if fast travel is not available in this version.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to to circle around, just finish my thought of like I'm just glad that the sound of this game, the sound direction, and the general BGM and the battle tracks, like they didn't evolutionify, if that's a word. It is still very very reverent to the original composition and arrangements that really reinforce just like what this game is all about. It's such a nice modern rendition of those tracks that it's very very memorable to. And I'm glad they
Is
paid
it a hot
for
take
that.
to prefer the Evo soundtracks
A little,
for
a
the
little, not gonna
crossbow?
lie, it's a
No,
little
no,
bit
for
hot
the
take.
not for this one, for the crossbow games.
No, I mean Crossbow less so. The evil ones for the Sky games maybe. Crossbell, no, I don't think so. Not that much. It's still not preferable to me.
But you know what my best option would be? I wish they would let me toggle per setting, or maybe they could even add like super range soundtracks into the
Oh,
game. That
that's
would be
funny.
sweet.
That's funny.
I don't know,
I do think this remake, obviously, it was cool to see Junior as a complete newcomer, really warm up to it. Like, we really didn't say anything to him at all when he was playing this game. I think a lot of us really respected like not influencing Junior one way or the other of like what to think about this game because I think when I think about Junior's approach to games, Junior is pretty fair. Like all things to consider, they like Junior doesn't really care about like what the legacy of a game is, like what's the backstory, what's the etc. It's like what you see is what you get in terms of like Junior judges a game based on its own grounds rather than like a lot of external influences.
One thing I want to also jump on here real quick. Like it was not a foregone conclusion that he was going to enjoy this
Right.
game. So like earlier in the
Yes.
year, he was really, really excited to play his very first Rune Factory game, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, and we gave him the review for that, kind of in a similar vein, like, hey, it's kind of a spin-off game. Let's have a newcomer do it. And he was just like, wow, I don't really care for this much at all. And he gave it one of the lower scores across the spectrum. He got a bit of flack for it too, but like that was a game he was excited to try out. He was
Right.
new to it, didn't know what to think. He was just curious, and then
Well, yeah, he got some criticism where it's like, well, this is a spin-off. This isn't a mainline game. He's like, I don't really even know the context of that. I'm just judging what's in front of me.
Yep.
and also
Exactly.
there were some people that commented. I know there's always bad comments, but like, why did you get the Souls guy to play a JRPG? And it's just kind of like that's not how we work, especially Junior. Like he can enjoy lots of different types of games.
He's not even really a Souls
Right.
guy. He just like reviewed like the Lords of the Fallen like a reboot off of
And
happenstance.
Erdtree, I think. But yeah. Anyways, that's my point is that like he's done this before where he's played something as like a newcomer and he didn't like it. So but he came to this game and he was just like, wow, I love this. I love everything about this, basically. And of course I know that, he may not or he's not going to have all the context about like if there's something that's different or slightly adjusted in the remake, he's not going to know that. Like he's just seeing it in front of him right now as it is. So
Yeah. And I think, Junior did a spectacular job just kind of judging that game based on like the like without any like preconceived notion or any prior history. It's just like, hey, this game's pretty cool and I want to share like what I thought about it as someone who never really engaged with the series all that. So that was a really really cool approach from it. So kind of gave it a very very high score. To be honest, I wasn't expecting a 10, and I was really surprised. Did give it a 10. I was
And not just a 10, but he's like, this is the easiest 10 I've ever given.
right.
So like that's a strong statement of praise right there. In terms of like selling this game to newcomers, I do think that the conversation earlier about the stakes, how these are like local problems that has in order to escalate in good storytelling fashion, you do have to start small. And I guess there was maybe again, a concern might be too strong a word, but like Trails in the Sky for most of its runtime is a low stakes story. And then it ends up climaxing towards the very end at like something that really feels big and bold and matters when you get to the last chapter. And then of course those of us that have followed the series knows that it just continues to escalate from there, sometimes to good effect and sometimes not to great effect. But that the way that Trails in Sky FC was originally presented is maintained in the remake, which I think is one of the strongest, affirming things of praise you can say about it, is that it didn't end up getting too big too fast because people are returning to this game and they might know what happens next. So we're going to introduce all these other concepts earlier. We're going to tweak the story in a way because now we have all that additional
Yeah.
information for people who are returning, and they didn't do any of that, and all the better for it, I think, is where
Thank
we're
God.
landing on that.
Like there are
Yeah.
there are new quests, but the best way to put it is the new quests that have been added feel like they could have been in the original game. You
Yeah,
could have-
When you play it and you're like, was that quest there before? I don't remember. It's not obvious like, oh, this is introducing a character from Cold Steel because they happen to be in Liberal at this time. Did you know that? It's like they don't do that, and they so easily
I
could
wouldn't
have.
be I wouldn't be shocked if the quests they added were they had ideas to do quests like that originally and they just didn't have the chance to do them. I would not be shocked.
I have a boomer point of comparison here.
Mhm.
When I think about a remake to a game that kind of faltered in getting the feel or the tone right, it's Wild Arms.
Ooh.
Boomer take. So Wild Arms
Mhm.
is a PlayStation 1 RPG. It got a remake on PlayStation 2 called Wild Arms Alter Code F, and it's the sort of remake where it just feels pretty different, and especially in the music. Josh's discussion there actually kind of made me think of that. There's like in the original Wild Arms, I'll get off this tangent quickly. Like the very first dungeon you go into with Cecilia is like it's like a library, and it's got like this really somber kind of slow kind of melodic music, and then in the remake it's like this upbeat like energetic theme, and it's kind of like, what are we doing? Like, why did we change this so dramatically?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this is
right.
a terrible memory. I actually hated the remake. Actually,
Yeah,
still go back to
I
the
remember.
original.
I remember
That's my
this
point.
now.
There are parts of Alter Code F that I think are cool, like on their own, but like as a remake of the original game, it feels very different. Anyways, that's my boomer take. Like an example of a remake that didn't really quite capture the original.
I think it's worth discussing about this game, like not just like the game content in itself, but also just kind of the external factors that this game has been an up and down ride ever since like review codes dropped for this game. I think every person who got an advanced copy of this game before release can all agree that like the way that Falcom and Gung Ho handled this release, even just not even just them, but like there's been other places like Limited Run Games, for example, and Clear River Games with their physical copies and their delays and stuff, and the way they decided to time that at the day of release. You know, this game is an excellent game, but the distribution of it on multiple levels has been almost, I wouldn't say a disaster too harsh of a word, but has been kind of poorly handled from top to bottom. Where we kind of alluded to it a little bit last podcast, because we technically could have discussed this game fully from top to bottom last week, maybe even the week before that, if anyone was I forgot exactly when codes dropped then, but it's just like it was one of the very rare instances where a code drop and then there's just no embargo at all. It's like they didn't give a date and time that says, hey, you are restricted from coverage of this game until this date and time, which almost every other game these days does, because they want to give a fair playing field to everyone and make sure that like no one's like burning themselves out, rushing through it as fast as possible to be the first one in the market to say, hey, we were first. Mikhail,
I guess they. Sorry,
yeah,
Mikhail, go ahead.
yeah, go Mikhail.
Yeah, so you brought up the limited run games thing, but since like I was doing a DLC guide for this, I've been following what's been happening on the like on the platform backends for a week now, and it's been kind of a mess because like obviously the most prominent mess up which we've seen on social is limited run games announcing that they can't ship the pre-orders for the game itself for people who ordered the Steelbook edition and the collector's edition from them. That's the big thing which we've seen, and I know like personal friends of mine in the US have like now they can't get the game, so they have to wait or they have to buy it digitally.
And
But what's been happening is
they
like
decided to like announce this on like the morning of
yeah,
release
yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
They
Yeah.
this is something they clearly knew about since before, so they could have like done something about. You know what happened with just like on a slight tangent when Bandai Namco's European store. I have friends who ordered like Tales of Arise and Elden Ring and Night Rain and stuff from there, and when they have delays with fulfillment, they actually like maybe it's because it's their own store, but a friend of mine got sent codes for Elden Ring and for like another game because the physical copy was delayed. So like that's how you handle it now.
Yeah, it's a good
You
make
could say
good,
that
Yeah.
yeah, you could say that, limited run games probably doesn't have the ability to do that, but Gung Ho like chose them as the distributor for this. They could have given them codes to make good with this, but that's like just the US side of the thing. In Europe, Clear River Games, pretty big distributor. They handle a lot of publishers. They also do like Digital Eclipse stuff, and they did Luna from Gung Ho, which was pretty easy to get everywhere. But what happened with Trails is I know a lot of people in the UK, in France, in Germany who've ordered the game from Amazon because Clear River also selling over there. And Amazon's just not shipped it. They just said that it's supposed to be shipped soon. Maybe we'll get it to you by 27th or 28th and stuff. And when they contact Amazon, they say we're working with the distributor or something like that. So this is another like a messed up situation because you have a large scale physical release which is supposed to be easy to get, but it's just not. Like we've discussed this before, but with Luna, the physical release was so popular that they've been reprinting it and restocking it multiple times. And I was just like bracing for hopefully them stocking enough for Trails because this is like the first worldwide simultaneous multi-platform entry, and it's the best entry point for the series as well. So like it's disappointing for this to happen, and that's on the physical side. Now, if you're listening and you're like, why would you not just go digital? There's a problem there also. On Steam, first of all, there are two versions of the game. One is Sora no Kiseki, the first, which is Clouded Leopard Entertainment's Korean and Chinese version, which is also visible on Steam worldwide, by the way, so don't buy it by mistake.
They'll even let you buy it. And
Yeah, they do. I know. I mean, like, I bought Trails of Cold Steel 1 Clouded Leopard Entertainment just to see how the port was. So, like, I've done that before, but don't be stupid like me. So yeah, their release seems to be going off fine, but the Gung Ho English and Japanese release, they only have the standard edition available. The season pass bundle and the digital deluxe edition are delayed. Like, there's no ETA on it. They're just working on it. They said technical difficulties on Steam. So if you want to get the DLC, you'll have to buy all of it standalone, and it'll cost more. They've not mentioned anything about a discounted upgrade because the release is delayed for the bundle or whatever. And yeah, so that's Steam. Nintendo Switch in North America, it seems to have gone off fine because I've not heard of anyone complaining, and it worked fine for me. I tried buying some DLC. In Europe, the Switch 2 upgrade was delayed to like around half a day after launch for some reason. So I know some people who ended up upgrading through the US eShop because they just wanted to play the Switch 2 version. And there was no listing of the Switch 2 upgrade at all until like half a day after launch. Now going to PlayStation, it's a PS5 game. People who bought the deluxe edition or bought the season pass were unable to download any DLC until like nearly a day later. They fixed it finally, but I don't know how, like, this could have all been avoided if they actually just had pre-orders available for the game instead of just listing it and putting up a price and like doing everything on launch day. So it's not been a smooth digital or physical launch, but I hope it doesn't affect the game too much because like it's a fantastic game. I love it. So yeah, like it is unfortunate that this is happening.
I don't think in the long run it's going to impact it too much, especially considering like it's already not even close. It is the most successful Falcom game on Steam. Even just counting the Western Japanese version, the peak players of that is higher than every other game that Falcom has released on Steam, except for the Chinese Korean version of the same game, which has peaked over 10,000 concurrent players. Like, and again, this is the first Nihon Falcom PC version that they've developed in-house in over 15 years. Oh, thank God I won't have to play a fucking Trails game on PlayStation ever again.
Yeah. So, and yeah, so it's just like it's kind of like the up and down journey of this game up until launch and then even a little after launch. Thank you, Mikhail, for kind of breaking it down because just like different problems on almost like multiple levels. It's like this is kind of really weird, and hopefully Gung Ho next time rolls around. Hopefully take some lessons learned from this. Crossing our fingers because that people already reported it. And once again, tying it back to, hey, there's the problem with having no embargo. Days before the game came out, multiple outlets are and of course Reddit already reported like, hey, when you beat this game, a trailer for Trails of the Sky SC remake plays, and then that's already widely distributed online. We knew about it, but we're like, we don't want to ruin this for people who want to see this for themselves. Like, it's technically yes, it's technically news, but this doesn't feel fair to the people who can't play it right now.
That is true. Though I will say that I was kind of expecting that from the moment that the opening was a beat for beat remake of the original opening, and the major trailer was a beat for beat remake of the original trailer. I kind of had a feeling that's like they're being this close to the original like movies regarding the original release.
I wouldn't say it's a beat for beat
It's not a beat for beat. They show one of the characters there, and now people are like, "This trailer spoils too much," or blah blah blah. So
yeah, it's definitely it's.
I'm
important.
not saying the SC trailer is the same. I'm just saying that the opening was very clearly meant to be a recreation of the original opening, and the FC trailer was a recreation of the original trailer. So it's like when I saw those two things, I was like, okay, I see. I would be shocked if there's not the SC teaser at the end of the game like the original, and then there was. So,
and I guess it's important to kind of contextualize this as well because people are saying like, why is this considered a spoiler or anything? It's just like a remake of like a really old game that they did in the original as well. So why is it a big deal? And I guess like how I see it in the context was when this was first shown back in the PSP release, even like there wasn't like a rampant social media online thing going on where everyone was like already all talking to each other in detail and just like having these big digital village town square where it was easy to kind of just like shout at the world with it. So like people were like if people for the very small community that was following this closely back then on those releases, like talking about it each other, it was still a fairly small size, like a very small niche community. And now it's just like, hey, you want to like this release, it's important for this release to like kind of introduce it to a new audience because this is how you keep the series like this is how you this for survivability of the series pretty much of like Falcom realizes like we should really try to do a better idea of like trying to introduce the series to people. So this game is, yes, it's awesome for veterans, it's awesome for people replaying it, but really this game is for people who want to genuinely want to give this series a shot but just don't know where to begin. And even if they don't know, even if they knew where to begin when they go back to those games, it's for many people that game has not aged well for them. Like they just can't go back to that sort of style of game, which is understandable. Everyone has different tastes, everyone has different sensibilities in that regard of what they're able to tolerate and what they aren't, sort of that stuff. So trying to emulate that feel of like, hey, wow, I'm being surprised that like that they're about upcoming events or upcoming things that like to be excited for, trying to have some semblance of still a surprise in this day and age, I think is important to try to keep that spirit alive because that's how I fell in love with like a lot of like games too. Like I remember when I was playing through the dot hack games and when they did like the tease the next part of what was going to happen next in the original tetralogy of those games, I got excited like, holy shit, this is what like the third game is going to have. That's insane. I can't wait for it. And trying to at least emulate that feel in this day and age, I think is, in my opinion, still admirable because that's what I liked about games way back when I was playing through an RPG series that I knew was going to get multiple sequels, but giving me that teaser of the next one to get me excited was very magical, just like how next episode previews are for shows.
And it kind of like when you see headlines from whatever website saying, "Here's the teaser for the second game," it's like James said, it's not really a surprise, but it also just kind of like let first chapter stand as its own. It doesn't have to be like, oh, now they're gonna remake the whole series. When do they stop remaking them? Are you gonna go just straight into like, I don't know what the best point of comparison is, like World of Warcraft. What's the remaster of that called? Where they just re-release the expansions at like a offset 14-year cadence, where they're just
World
like,
of Warcraft
now
Classic. Yeah.
that's it. Where it's just like now it's Pandaria, then Legion, then it
Yeah.
just follows behind, and we're gonna get FC, then SC, and then third maybe, and then is Crossbell Nux. Like so let's not even have that in the conversation. Let's just like Trail's first chapter. It does end on a cliffhanger. So that is the sort of thing where it is part of a whole in that sense, but something's lost when you just before a player can even start the game, they see the headline. Oh, here's the teaser for the second entry, and then it's like, well, I'm just interested in jumping in here and seeing what this game says to me. So I do agree with Josh on that front.
There's also, like lovely remake does, but obviously doesn't. There are still some long-standing flaws, whether you're already used to it or not. It does lead into a bit of like some of Falcom's long-standing. I guess people may call it an issue. I'll call it like a nuisance, but people remember when you're playing these games that like a lot of them are partially voice acted in the sense that like there's that a lot of story scenes are like, especially in this one, definitely has voice acting in it, but a lot of the exchanges with like some other characters will be partially voice acted. Where a good one would be like when you're visiting Bose for the first time in chapter one, when you're talking to Legrand, the guild bracer receptionist, and your party goes up and talks to him, and he's mainly voiced, but your party members, Joshua, Estelle, and Shara at that time, are all unvoiced. So all you hear is really is Legrand's voice in it during that exchange, but your main party is still talking in the sense that their mouths are moving, but their text is all unvoiced, and that occurs. You'll see a noticeable increase in that after the prologue, because I think the prologue does a pretty good job at still trying to maintain a decent amount of voice acting in exchanges, but moving forward after that prologue chapter, it kind of leads to that long-standing Falcom Trails issue, where like a lot of these scenes with having a conversation with the character is very like one-sidedly voice acted. Awkwardly, not necessarily like a deal breaker, but it's very noticeable, especially in this one that has like it's very more. There's a lot more voice dialogue and cinematics as part
There's
of the
definitely
remake
more
deal.
voice acting than past Falcom titles, but at the end, it's like it still doesn't match those evil titles when the whole story is voiced, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of the bigger thing. It's because like the Evo, the Evo version does exist. Like not on modern systems, but like they did this before, where the Evo versions were fully voice acted in that regard. It's like it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is still.
I guess when you play the prologue, it just gives you this false impression that it's like, oh, is it going to be like so much voiced? And then when you get to like a little further in the game, it's like, oh no, it's just for key
No,
characters
definitely.
then. So I guess it does give you the false impression, though.
And also a little pet peeve of mine with the we're gonna get to like the terminology thing in a bit, but a small little pet peeve of mine that also becomes more prominent the more you play the game is that onomatopoeias in the dialogue aren't actually represented with like the actual noise of the onomatopoeia. It's all represented by ellipses. So like if Agate is like snoring or sighs, you don't hear like parentheses sigh or sigh like in the script. It's all ellipses, just a dot. It's like as that sound effect is playing, so the onomatopoeias are just like represented as ellipses through the text box, which is like an awkward, I don't know, depiction of them. Because sometimes like you'll hear a noise from someone and you don't know what it's supposed to like represent. Sometimes and the text box just tell you ellipses. Okay, thanks. And that's just a little pet peeve of mine that like my friend and I were talking about it. I'm like, this is kind of just a really weird decision to do that. But
You did talk about the terminology changes, and I
Yeah.
think we've talked about that in a couple of the pre-release, because Silver Streak, it showed up as like what, white gleam or something, one of the original trailers or screenshots. Like some of them got fixed, but then some of them are still different. One of the one that sticks out most to me is the acerbic tomato is now the bitter tomato. And I'm like, that's probably more correct, but I miss the like acerbic. It's like, what's wrong with this tomato? But now it's just bitter. And I'm like, oh, it's just a bitter tomato now. That's I miss it. I like, and this sort of thing where if you're a newcomer, you're not even gonna notice. But it's one of those
Yeah.
things where you're like, oh,
The one that
I don't
cracks me
like
up is like the one that cracks me up is like in fishing. I think like one of the fish, like I think it's like the tiger rockfish is now orosho or something like that. And it's like okay, sure. Where it's
But
just
yeah,
like
there's terminology changes. Even Junior asked, like, what's wrong with these changes?
yeah, and that's totally fine. Like it's not like I said, it's not, those are minor, those aren't like crazy, but there's definitely ones that they've. And James, I know you're you want to talk about this. There's definitely ones that like are changes that like may have future may impact the future of the games going forward, because there's definitely ones that are long-standing terms that have been used in other games that like we hope that they maybe fix these now so it doesn't lead to confusion down the road. And I'll let you go into it, James.
The one thing I'm worried about with regards to all of this is that I don't know when they would go in to re-record these lines, because reading between the lines, kind of a spoiler, I'll just say that right up front. The second chapter remake teaser had English dubbed lines, which implies at least that they've already started recording lines for that remake. So have they already gotten all the dubs for that? Or are they still recording? If they're still recording, they could just bring the actors in and do some extra takes for stuff they need to fix. But if they've already recorded everything, which I wouldn't be shocked, because I mean, if the script, like, we don't know when Actil, which was the actual people that worked on the translation for, I don't know if they were doing it for Falcom directly or Gung Ho. It doesn't really matter. They're the ones that did the translation. We don't know how long they had the script. It could have been a situation where when Falcom was considering whether or not they were going to self-publish it, because again, that was one thing they were originally considering for a worldwide release. They might have gotten Actil in on that super early. I could have seen that being a thing. And if that's the case, second chapter remakes translation might already be done. Who knows? So hopefully stuff gets fixed, but for specific things that have like voice lines, like archaisms or however you pronounce it, or like they use golems, which is still a decent translation for what that is. It just doesn't match up with the rest of the series, which a lot of these translation, like in terminology quirks, in a vacuum, the translation is just fine. It's actually pretty good, I would say. But because this is a long running series that's gone on for 13 games now, because there's differences in how this remake refers to certain things and the rest of the series, we gotta hope they fix it, because it is more important here than if it was a standalone release, because it isn't.
And we've seen that a little bit in precedent before, where Xseed went back into first chapter and upped, obviously not like the PSP cartridge, but like the PC version, to update some of the names like Hummel to Hamel and Zin to Zane. Zane to Zin. And like, but now that you've got voice acting considered in too, it's just not as easy to do that. And I don't think it was even easy before. The fact that they could was a minor miracle. And then not to mention that these English versions at this point are now published by different entities. Xseed, NIS are now Gung Ho. Like all the behind the scenes stuff, I don't know how we can speak to what can be done on that front, or if this is just kind of the new normal in that sense.
Yeah, it remains to be seen, because you don't know exactly what their plans are, and maybe they're now aware of it, and maybe we'll go back and maybe fix it. Well, who knows? Who knows at that? We can hope for the best.
There's
But
a
yeah, I
couple
mean-
other interesting ones that are just like the towers have different names. And there's actually a joke in there where I might get the tower names incorrect, so correct me. The first tower they're calling the Jade Tower instead of the Esmelis Tower, I believe. And then instead of Amberol Tower, it's just Amber Tower. And then there's like a later tower where Estelle's like, this must be the Ruby Tower. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense because they're naming them after gemstones. And then Josh is like, no, it's Crimson. I'm like, wait, but the other two are named after Jade and Amber. So why wouldn't it be the Ruby Tower? Why is it Crimson? So just stuff like that. I'm just like,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I will say they don't need to fix the towers. They have never come up after like Trails in the Sky, and there's no reason they would come up again. So it's like, yes, it's different.
Well, wait till
They
Kai
don't matter.
2. The Kai 2 is gonna make the towers so
If they
important
were, you
That'd
know,
be so funny. That'd be so
you've
funny.
played Kai, so you know what I'm gonna say to that. It's not gonna get brought up.
They're gonna become the main characters.
If they're gonna reference them, they're gonna use the term for the set of the towers as a whole, which is the same in this one, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it's. I don't really have much else to say about this game in general. I mean, it's just like, hey, if you've ever been interested, you don't even have to pay up money. There's a demo out that gives you like 6 hours of game time to make up your mind of whether you like it or not. So even if you're on the
it's like
fence on this, there's a demo.
Yeah, it's like once you play the demo, you already got a good idea what the remake is, really, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
gonna be like
And
different.
we've talked about how vertical slices of RPGs can be very tricky, but if you make it a 6-hour prologue vertical slice, you're like that. If you play through that, you will know how this game feels, sounds, looks, plays. Like, and that if you're like, hey, I'm a fan of JRPGs or I dabble in JRPGs often, but never this series, what does it play like? Is it similar to this? That like the demo really is your go-to place, saying this is not just a representative of the game, but of the series in terms of how story is conveyed, how quests are laid out, how exploration, and then obviously combat is more tailored toward like the more recent hybrid since Daybreak 1, but gives you a decent feel for how that works, crafts, spells, all that sort of stuff.
And
And
even if you're the type
I'm
of
very glad
person
I
who's
played
like,
through it.
even if you're the type of person like who's I just want to see the story. I don't really care much. Like, I don't want to think about the battles too much. Like, there's like an easy / very easy mode. Like, that's you can do that, and that's totally fine. Like, I know, like a handful of people expressed concern of like, man, these games already take so long, and I just want to see the story, what happens. That though there's a lot of like easier difficulty options just for you. That you can dabble
But they're
in. And
probably wouldn't allow it.
there's no penalty. There's no penalty for it. Like, it's not like you're missing out on story content because you went on the lower difficulty mode. And sometimes
And I
games
think
do that. Sometimes other
I
RPGs do
think
that.
the only achievement, like if this is something people care about, which they do, which is valid, is that I think the only achievement is for beating it on Nightmare with hardest. Like other like normal versus very easy. It's not like you're even locking yourself out of a normal level achievement, I don't think. And like you said, nothing else has changed in terms of like what you're able to access or anything like that. So it's a 100% a valid option for those either revisiting the game or just wanting to like playing this game just for the story. This is a suitable game to do that. Not every game can do that. Not some games have stories that are so terrible where you're like, well, you would not play this for the story, or you could skip the cutscenes and still enjoy 80% of it. This game, especially if you're new to the story, there's a reason people came to love it, even with its limitations on its original PC PSP release. With the pace the gameplay was there in terms of its characters and its narrative and the way that it continues to build upon itself, even within its own game, let alone the overarching series. But yeah, I know that we're all going to continue to play through it. Those that haven't finished it up, like I think I'm currently in chapter 3 out of 5. James just said he finished it up. I know that Adam has it on his list to get to. So I know this has kind of been a major spotlight release for us this year, and we have a lot of features up on the site. Of course, we have Junior's review. We have James's veteran feature. And then Mikhail has, I believe, both of these are yours in terms of PC versus Nintendo Switch 2. How it plays as a port being handled by not by PH3 specifically in this case.
Yeah, so for this one, it was like, because how the code, the way they started sending out the codes, it was first, I believe it was PS5 followed by PC the next day, but Switch 2 codes we got like, what was it, 2 days before launch. And at that point, and like you mentioned, the demo which is available, that's still the Switch 1 demo, so there is no demo for the Switch 2 version. So because I got the Switch 2 version as well, and I was like, let me try this out and see how it is, and I'll write something about that. And yeah, like after playing for a few hours, I wrote some initial impressions because here's the thing, like Gung Ho and Falcom on, at least I'd say Gung Ho because the Japanese eShop page does not say this. The English Western eShop page says that on Switch 2 you can enjoy 4K 30 or 1080 60 gameplay when you're docked. That is not true based on the game and the build which is available to play right now. So I was a bit confused by that. Cullen has also, like, he wrote up his impressions for the Switch 2 port like later that day on Nintendo Insider. But for my article, I was just focusing on how the Switch 2 version improves over the Switch 1 version because it's like a $1 upgrade. And it is a big visual upgrade, like foliage, resolution, and stuff, but the performance is just not great. It does not feel good. If it was 30 FPS, I would have actually been happier than this unstable frame rate which is there, and there's no VRR in either mode that is helping. So it's just a poor showing from the Switch 2 version, especially after Proud Nordics is like the best glow up for a Switch to Switch 2 game ever so far. Like even bigger than I'd say Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom now looking back. So yeah, like the Switch 2 version, I hope they patch it. Right now it's not in a great state. So that was one of my features. And then the other thing is I'm still working on one more, which I'm going to try and have this week. It's like a big comparison of everything. But for the PC version, yeah, like it's like James mentioned, Falcom's first internal PC release in like over a decade. It's, I said it in the article, it's the second best PC port of 2025, and it's only second to another Falcom game, which is Trails Through Daybreak 2, which was handled by PH3. And a lot of what I mentioned when I was talking about missing features is not like, you've shipped out Borderlands 4, which runs like dog shit for a lot of people. No, this is a good PC version. It's just that there are features which people who played modern Falcom games have just gotten used to. Like, you have the show background music option whenever a new song plays. You have like more granular control over the turbo mode. Then PH3 also does this thing where the mini map and portraits and all the 2D assets get like better, like sampling they call it. So it looks good across the board and not just at specific resolutions. Because I don't know if you've tried playing this on Steam Deck, but a lot of the 2D assets do not scale well over there, while the game itself, like the 3D gameplay, looks good. But you have portraits and the title screen will look kind of bad on 720p. But my solution to that right now is, because the port is as it is, I just downsample from like 1080 by 1200 and like turn down some settings, because it's really grating seeing such gorgeous 2D artwork look like it's just sampled poorly or scaled poorly. So stuff like this, like I mentioned, like there's minimap, anti-aliasing, and all these niche features which maybe a lot of people don't care about, but yeah, I got used to them. Like since I'd say maybe Reverie is when the ports went from being amazing to like fantastic from PH3. So I decided to like put that into the PC feature, and yeah, it is a fantastic PC version, but it's a step back from PH3 stuff. So that was the second feature I did for Trails first chapter.
And when you're reading some of like Durante's PH3's like blog posts about how they're rendering the UI at a different, on a different level compared to the base game, you can kind of, at least for me, who's not as technically savvy, kind of go blind reading it. But then you notice it when it's gone, when you have to scale it down to 16 by 10 on the Steam Deck, and the arbitrary resolution isn't natively supported, and then all the images look very blocky, and you're like, oh, I miss that. So yeah, it's niche, like you say, but it is noticeable, especially on the ever so popular handheld PC form factors nowadays.
Yeah, it's like it's even like 21:9 support. So they added ultra wide. Like there are a lot of features. Like I was discussing this with James when we got like like when he had the demo and when I played the demo. There are a lot of features here which we both did not expect Falcom to even add. I expected like the absolute bare minimum PC port, which would be like some of those bad ports which, like, on PC, if you say prioritize resolution or frame rate, like those console features, and don't actually give players control. I expected something like that, which would just be like a bad experience, but they've delivered a really, really good version. It's just that there are like ultra wide 21:9 support. It's there, but it's not as good as it should be. Then there's no 32:9 support. The 16:10 support, which is there in the game, is only for the actual gameplay, not the menus. Like stuff doesn't scale correctly, or you'll have black bars in some scenes and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. How fonts are rendered, some of the menus, you can tell like the text was squished because they needed to fit like 2 words in a single line. Stuff like that, which PH3 would take care of. But yeah, it's just not here. So might run into like we're gonna have like what 2 PS3 ports in the next like 6 or 7 months, I guess, because or maybe a bit more because Horizon is coming out in January and Proud Nordics is supposed to be early 2026 on PC. So yeah, 2 PS3 ports gonna be out soon. So that's gonna be interesting to see because and according to James, at least speculation trails SC might be what before June as well. Maybe
It's
even
complete.
sooner. I don't
It's
know.
complete speculation, but we do
Yeah,
know that
speculation to be clear.
Falcom has said that they're planning starting next year to release more than one game a year, like for major releases, not like ports and stuff.
Yeah. So
So my assumption
it could be
would
SC into Kyoto Xanadu or something like that. Like those two games maybe and Kai to 2027 early or I don't know. Or again speculation, but yeah, there's a lot.
speculation. Yeah, but I would at this point, considering we already technically have SC remake announced with gameplay and dubbed voice lines, that's going to be the Trails release next year. I do not expect Kai 2 until 2027, which is painful, but at least I know to expect that.
So yeah, like that. I put a bit about because a lot of people were asking when I did the Switch 2 article, like they were replying saying like, are you covering the Steam Deck version? Should I get this? Should I get the Steam Deck? So I need I just put a short thing about that because I'll save it for the full comparison when I also cover the PS5 version and do everything. And even the PSP and the PC version, like how it plays on like modern Windows and stuff like that. There's a lot for that which will take some time, but yeah, it's just going back to the Switch 2 version. I'm just disappointed it shipped like that because there's an issue right now which affects like Switch 2 in general. If you upgrade a Switch 1 game to Switch 2, you cannot play just the Switch 1 version anymore on Switch 2 unless you have a physical version. You delete your save and you delete the install. There's no way to like not play DLC, and Switch 2 upgrades are considered DLC for these types of releases. And the Switch 1 version playing on Switch 2 gave you 60 FPS docked, which you cannot get anymore once you upgrade. So it is unfortunate that happened. I'll just say that again. And I hope Gung Ho Falcom are working to get a patch out for that very soon. And I forgot to mention this when talking about the DLC stuff before. They've not released the chibi model and the blocky costume and the classic costume adventure pack, which was supposed to be for everyone for like launch month or a launch celebration. I don't know what's going on with that either. So it's just
those were cool costumes. I forgot about those.
Yeah, they aren't available right now unless I think if you bought the physical steelbook or something like that. I saw a picture of one of the DLCs in that. So maybe those codes work, but for some reason they're not up for us to claim or to buy digitally. So I don't know what's going on over there. I'll probably reach out to Gung Ho and actually check in on that because the Clouded Leopard Entertainment version has all of that available. There's no issue there. In fact, I also saw some discussion about how CLE did a 10% or 20%, 10% it was launch discount, but Gung Ho didn't do one. So like a lot of people are like, why is the Asia version handled so much better than the one which we are getting? So yeah. But yeah, that's Trails. Still more to come while we talk about it. More of us finish it and more articles go up probably.
Yeah, across multiple authors, we have been covering this game extensively on the site. So one site navigation tip is that if you're reading Junior's review and then you click on the box art to the right, you can see all the other features that have been put up for that game. So and obviously, of course, if you're playing it, we encourage comments, whether it's in our Discord, discord.gg/RPG site, or comment to the review or the other features that you see. Whether you're returning to the series or first time like Junior, I'm interested to see what the reception to the game is like amongst the RPG site audience. And with 1 hour of Trails discussion out of the way, Adam, your term's up. We're going to go to the other release from this week. And this one's an interesting one. It's one that I've kind of thought had a really pleasing art style and a really, really fun, at least, presentation of its gameplay loop. Ever since it was announced, this is Towa and the Sacred Guardians, and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree. My apologies. Hades-like, to summarize it very simply, that released this week. So you've been playing through this one. Tee us up what this game is and what your thoughts on Towa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree was.
Yeah, so this is a Bandai Namco published game developed by Brownies. Brownies is a smaller Japanese developer. They kind of, more or less, spun off of Brownie Brown, which was founded by Kamioka, who was part of the Mana series way back in the day. So that's kind of the general lineage there. And their most recent release was, I think, Eglia, like Legend of the Red Cap. And so this is a smaller studio creating this game that Bandai Namco is publishing. And off the bat, just conceptually, I think that's just really a cool thing to have, like a big Japanese publisher basically throwing their support, their weight behind a smaller developer. And I don't know whose like IP this is, but basically having this smaller developer create this, new game. It's not tied to an existing IP or anything like that. But with basically the publishing and the marketing power of a big publisher for a small title, I just think that's cool. As someone who oftentimes feels like franchise fatigue or like, I gotta catch up on the lore, or do you know all the context or whatever? It's like, no, this is something that you can just jump into, no preconceptions or no research needed, just go. And smaller scale, maybe a little bit more experimental. You said that you really liked how this game looks, and that's one reason why it caught my eye. Like, I think this game looks really cool. Like the art style, the character art. I'm not even sure who the character artist is off the top of my head, but I really like the style of the character art, the color palette. It is an isometric game, and it's not like a big budget game, so it's not going to have like the highest fidelity textures or environments or whatever, right? But for the scope of game it is, I really do like how it looks, like everything about its presentation, and that does go for its soundtrack also. It is a Hitoshi Sakamoto soundtrack, if you weren't aware. He did Valkyria Chronicles, Final Fantasy XII, Odin Sphere, bunch of stuff, right? It's a little bit more of a like traditional Japanese style soundtrack because if you're not familiar with this game is sort of set in that sort of era of like traditional Japan. You're in a village called Shinju Village. It's got that sort of aesthetic to it. And his soundtrack kind of matches that really well. And so everything about what this game sounds like and what it looks like for me is like exactly what I wanted. It's really good. The game itself, like you said, is a roguelike. It's an action roguelike. So I did not compare it to Hades directly in my review. I kind of wanted to avoid that. But yes, Hades is coming out this month, or the sequel is. So it's relevant, and it is that sort of game. There are 8 guardians that you can play as, at least at the start of the game. And you pick a guardian, and you basically will you'll go on a run. It's a roguelike, so it's a run-based game. You'll go through randomized rooms, semi-randomized rooms. You'll defeat a group of enemies, or maybe a mini-boss, in a room, like a small little environment. And then once you complete that room, you'll pick up a bonus, like a stat. It's called a grace. And you pick up a grace, and you basically get a selection of 4 different bonuses to choose from. They're randomized, and these will improve your stats or add some sort of modifier or property to one of your attack abilities or things like that. So yes, if you played Hades, this probably sounds familiar. And I know there's other games too that have this similar sort of framing. You go through a sequence of rooms. You are trying to build your character based on the kind of the cards that you are dealt, in terms of, oh, I got this ability in the previous room. If I get this ability now, they'll stack in a way that it's beneficial to me. And you can kind of create fun little kind of combinations of modifiers that hopefully allow you to be more successful in getting to the end of the run. And then at the end of the run, you fight a boss. And then at that, you go back to base. Base in this game is Shinju Village. It's a little bit tricky to explain, like, the in-universe reasoning for why this game is set up the way it is. It has to do with, like, a broken timeline and multiple universes. It's not like a multiverse thing, not really, but basically, you are Towa. You are kind of a guardian spirit of Shinju Village, and she has the appearance of like a teenage girl, like 15-year-old girl, and she has 8 different guardians that she has chosen as her guardians and basically her warriors to fight against an evil god known as Magatsu. So Magatsu has basically been upending the timeline. The world is dangerous, and you've been fighting against it. And it kind of created this weird kind of jumbled up state where you go on these sort of runs, and each run, as you defeat the spawns of Magatsu, you kind of are like putting the timeline back together. That's more or less the premise of the game. And maybe this is like my first criticism of the game, my first major one here, is that in terms of like narrative, the game's narrative is very front-loaded. You learn about all this in like the first half hour. But then, like, for throughout most of the rest of the game, even up until the ending, it's more or less just Magatsu is evil. It's an evil being doing evil things. We don't even know what it looks like until the very end. It's just an evil being that's out there, and you need to stop him, and you need to fight them, and that's
Evil
about it.
McBad guy.
Yeah, it's just like evil. This is evil. So it's not really a story-heavy game. Anyways, when you're at Shinju Village, this is your home base, and this is where you can do your permanent progression. It is a roguelike game, but let's just say you go on a run and you falter, you fall partway through. Don't worry, just like most modern roguelites, you are gaining something to make the next run easier. There's a bunch of different currencies in the game that you do for various things. There's ore, there's gems, and other things that you get. And back in Shinju Village, you can turn these things in various ways to improve your characters. The most kind of simple to explain is at the dojo, you can turn in a certain type of ore to basically power up some of your character stats permanently. So these are things like your attack power, your attack speed, your HP, even like how many dashes you can do. Again, isometric action RPG, so you will be dashing, pressing a button to kind of do like a quick little dash along the screen. Very, very frequently, you dash, as you're dodging around and weaving in between enemies and AoE attacks and things like that. So you can improve that, you can improve your cooldowns and other things. There's also the blacksmith, where you can turn in certain types of ores to improve your swords. You have 2 different swords that you can wield at a time. Any character can wield at a time. And there's actually a pretty elaborate kind of blacksmith mini game, where you're doing a bunch of different QTEs for like forging the sword, quenching the sword, folding the sword, decorating the sword, and things like that, that most of which do affect its properties, both in terms of its stats as well as like just kind of these inherent bonuses that are found on your sword. Honestly, it's maybe a little bit too elaborate. Like, I gotta go through this whole process to just try and get a better sword again. But it's there. It's fun. It's fun enough. And then there's other things like your gems and whatnot that can also improve your abilities. Basically, what it boils down to is there are many different ways that you can power up your characters. And so you never feel like, I know some people don't like roguelikes because it feels like you're wasting time. Like, oh, I got halfway through a run and then I fell. Now that was just a waste of 20 minutes or whatever. No, not really. It never really felt like that to me, because you're always getting something that, oh, okay, I can turn this in, power up somewhere, and try again, and now I'm more likely to succeed. Now, in terms of unique parts of Towa, the most outwardly evident unique component to it is that you're not really controlling just one character, you're controlling 2 characters. You have 2 characters that basically go onto a run at any time. You have your sword-wielding character, known as a Tsurugi, and you have your staff-wielding character who trails behind, known as the Kagura. You are always controlling the Tsurugi, the sword-wielding character, as your main character. The Kagura more or less acts like the Luigi in this case, just kind of trailing behind, kind of following along.
Sorry, I just love that way of describing it as like a mechanic. Okay.
Sorry. It's kind of but okay, there is a control method where you can take control of the Kagura temporarily, the staff wielder, to move them manually. But the thing is I never really felt that was viable, because this is an action roguelike. You're dodging abilities and attacks and enemies all the time. If you've looked at any screenshots or gameplay for this game, you'll know that basically every single enemy that is on the screen and every single attack they do it shows like a big red colored like AoE, like a straight line or a circle around them or whatever. That's basically saying, there's going to be an attack in this area and you need to dodge out of it. So you dash out of it. And I always felt the game is very upbeat, high pace, that like stopping to control the Kagura was like never felt viable to me. So basically, long story short, they're just trailing behind. They do spells. You basically have a few command options with them. But this is like one of my first major criticisms of the game, and I saw a lot of people kind of saying this, is that when you're controlling the Tsurugi, the sword wielder, you have to be pretty deft and, on top of it, to dodge attacks, get hits in when you can, avoid all those AoEs, and basically don't take damage. You want to avoid taking damage so much as possible. But the Kagura, who is kind of just trailing behind you, is far, far, far more likely to get hit than you are because you're not really controlling them directly. So they're always taking hits, and it just kind of it's annoying in a way because it's kind of like, well, I dodged everything. Why can't you dodge everything? And they're hurting against you, so it kind of feels like a liability or a paperweight or an ankle weight, like on
Now,
you.
I might not remember correctly, but when I did the preview, I want to say there was an ability to just separate them and like move them away, but that also feels kind of jank because it's like then you can't really aim the magic attacks that well. It's like I don't know.
Yeah, that's basically what I was getting at with you can control them and move them to a certain spot, but like you have to pause for a minute, even if it's just like a second to like move them out of the way. It's a sort of game where every second matters. And it just never really felt like good. Like it just felt like a penalty almost. Like I actually like kind of two character games where there feels like there's a good synergy between characters. Like, I don't know, the original version of The World Ends With You. I know people have their criticisms there, but there are games that have like, I feel like a good synergy between like sort of like a two character system in some way. This one I never really felt like that. It was just kind of like, oh, I have the Tsurugi who's doing almost all my damage, and then the Kagura who's taking almost all the hits. It's like, this feels a little bit lopsided. The Kagura does have some spells, and I'm not going to say they're useless. They are useful at times, but I also kind of feel like this is a key component of the game, but I don't think it's necessarily elevating this game in the genre that it's in. It's like a gimmick for gimmick's sake that it never
also
really
does.
Go ahead.
It also doesn't help that like even in the best of times, like I cannot imagine that the development team of Towa feels very good that their game is releasing less than a week before Hades 2 comes out of early access, a game that undeniably is the better game and
Yeah.
has even a similar system where it's like, here's your ranged attacks and here's your melee attacks, and they're two separate things and they have different move styles, but it's only in one character. So you don't have to worry about positioning or anything like that. Like beyond the fact that like if you're doing a ranged attack, it's like, okay, how are you going to angle it and stuff like that. It's like I do genuinely feel for them, but like I was interested in maybe playing a bit of this, but then Hades 2 release date was announced, and it's like, well, I'll just play that instead. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. There are other components to this. Is basically my main takeaway to Towa is I feel like every kind of unique twist that it tries to put on the genre to kind of stand out and do its own thing, I almost feel like none of them work very well. So it's like I applaud the ambition or the try, like good effort, A for effort, but I just don't think it comes together. And it just like, I don't think this tweak that you made actually elevates it. If anything, it might actually be detrimental. So another example of that is each character can wield two weapons. They have two swords that they equip. It's like the Honzashi and the Wakizashi, and two different katanas. And depending on which one they have equipped at any time, they'll do a different ability. And how the game works generally is that you have one katana equipped and you press the attack button and they have basically one attack, just one ability that they do. And then you switch to the other sword and then you'll have a different attack that they do, like a different animation, different AoE, or just a different attack. That's your two attacks are tied to your two different swords, and you have to switch between them one at a time. And when you use one sword, its durability wears out over time. And then you switch to the other sword, and basically what that does is the durability of your now sheathed sword goes back to full. What I ended up finding myself doing was that there was usually like one attack for various characters that I felt like I like this attack. I feel like this attack is effective. It's useful. I can use it. I know how it, like, the timing of it and the scale of it and whatnot. And what I ultimately ended up doing, and this is sort of like partially my fault, but I'm not going to take all the blame for it, is like, I want to just do this attack from my Wakizashi over and 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 over again, because it's the most effective way to win. It's just like a strong ability, a useful ability. I know how it works. I am familiar with it and its timing and its range and everything. So what I would find myself doing is I would use my Wakizashi, I would use my attack until my sword durability wore out, and then I would just switch swords. I would do it twice in quick succession, and then voila, my durability is back to full, and I can do my attack again and again and again and again. So kind of what it boiled down to was I'm just doing this mashing of the same attack over and over. And you could just say, like, well, don't do that if that's boring. But also I kind of feel like, well, that's the most effective way to play. Like, if I don't want to play it this way, I'm making myself less effective. Like, the most effective way to play the game is to mash. I felt. And I actually feel like this is actually a problem that a handful of action RPGs, especially like early, more like action RPGs from a few generations ago, felt like, where it's just kind of like, why wouldn't I just
like Star Ocean
4, Dragon Roar, or other Star Ocean games? Yeah, there's no reason not to do the same attack over and over and over again. It's boring but effective. So it's like, that's not great.
I think we had this conversation before in like Saga Frontier. Have everyone learn the Dream super combo, and then everyone just keeps spamming the same move. And then it's like you're making the game boring, but it's an option there,
Well, but that's the thing. Like, okay, I could, like, I think this is backseat game dev or game designer here. Is like, maybe you should have had like some more incentive to switch between swords and use different attacks. Like, if you don't use a sword, maybe like your sheathed sword powers up, or something like that, where like, okay, now I'm going to switch to that sword and now I can use it a bit, and then my other sheath sword powers up, or give me some reason to play this sort of A-B cadence with your swords, but there isn't one, not really. So that's another mechanic of the game. I just kind of feel like it's undercooked. It feels like it doesn't really add anything compared to, like, for example, Hades. Sorry, I'm making the comparison. I promise I didn't do this too often in my review. Like, Hades, you kind of pick a weapon. There's like, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 different weapons that you can choose from, and you just pick one that you kind of like its attack style. And I just kind of feel like that's a simpler implementation, but it also just works. You just kind of pick one that you like. Another mechanic to the game that is kind of a design, more of a story character thing that I also feel like doesn't work very well is you get to pick between 8 different characters, right? And most of like the character development in the game, like when learning about the characters, who they are, and interacting with each other, happens between the Tsurugi and the Kagura that you pick. When you go on a run, basically at certain checkpoints on the run, they will have like conversations with each other. Some of them are, maybe more serious, maybe more about like the story of the world. Some of them are more silly, just kind of like fun interactions between characters of various attitudes or personalities or whatever. But what I kind of also ran into, what I felt was like, the character that I kind of grew to like, I like their combat style, or I like their attack, really, was Shigen. Shigen is like a catboy shinobi, is what he is. He likes to cook too. And my Kagura was a Kazu. He had like an earth spell and fire spells that I just felt like were easy to use. They were effective. They worked out well. So basically, my Tsurugi Kagura pair was Shigen and a Kazu, 2 guys that I felt I basically just stuck with them throughout the whole game and basically got very familiar with playing them. But what that also meant was more or less the 6 other characters, the 6 other guardians, I barely learned a thing about them because I never used them. So again, it's kind of like my fault, because like, well, just use them. It's like, well, when I'm trying to like succeed in a run, my priority is to succeed in the run, to get to the end, to like win, to get more currency, to get, to beat the boss, to move to the next part of the game. It's like, I could pick a Tsurugi that I'm less familiar with a Kagura whose spells I don't like, and learn about them. But then I kind of also feel like I'm sabotaging myself to do that. So the fact that basically the characters are you only learn about them when you use them, and like, they have like the attacks between characters are all quite different. So like you have to kind of get used to how they play. And again, I even put this in my review, partially my fault for not using them, but I also kind of feel like you're making a decision between, do I want to learn about the characters, or do I want to, do I want to stack the deck in my favor as much as possible to win?
You
So I
need
just kind
to
of
like engage with those conversations with like each of those the Kagaras and Surugis to like do like does that like factor like main story progression at all or affect ending
No.
or anything
Nope,
whatsoever?
not at all. It's just for learning about the characters. So
Interesting.
Do the individual characters progress as you go through? Like, if you're using a certain Tsurugi or Kagura and they get stronger, you're incentivized not to change off. Like, is that how it is?
to the game's credit, that actually is fine. It's not like you use a character and they
Okay.
become stronger than the others. They kind of all globally improve. So if I wanted to switch
Okay.
characters, I'm not like at a disadvantage now, besides knowing how to use them. But it's just kind of like, if you wanted to get basically the full, scope of like, here's all the characters and here's all the voice lines, and there's a lot of voice lines, but like between the different characters, you would have to like literally set aside runs where like, I'm just going to do a run with this pair, and then I'm going to switch them up and do this pair, and then I'm going to switch them up and do this pair of characters. But then each time you do that, you're like switching up like what abilities you have. And the game is difficult enough. There's only 2 difficulty modes, like standard and easy. I played it on standard, and the game is difficult enough if you're doing like the most if it's not like Hades where it's kind of like a single Hades 1 where it's like a single path that you go through over and over again with like variations. You actually like are picking like different like types of paths that you're going through that ramp up in difficulty. And then, but like if you wanted to learn more about the characters, you would have to set aside time to do runs just to do that. And I just kind of felt like I had to make this decision between, do I want to learn about the characters, or do I want to succeed at this run that it's actually, moderately challenging? And like, let me just try to succeed at the run and pick the characters that I want. So again, I'm acknowledging that, yes, this is partially my fault for never changing up my characters, but also it's like, I kind of made the decision not to because I feel like that's a disadvantage for me to do that. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does.
I get
Like,
it,
you're not
I get it.
incentivized to do these things. Like, it kind of is a related conversation to our conversations about how games need at least a small amount of friction. Like, in terms of like, we gamers, and I know that's a very broad brush, will tend to over efficientize to make efficiency into a verb. A lot of things in terms of, we have limited time. Games are so long these days, and if there was, I liked your ideas for how to make the sword switching be incentivized to stick on a certain sword or power up multiple different weapons. And I'm sure there'd be other things you could drop in there for encouraging to switch characters. Like maybe as different characters are used together, they'll both like. I have not played the game, so this is just me coming up with something based on your description. A bond level between a Tsurugi and a Kagura improves their stats regardless of whether you put them in with another pairing. So you're incentivized to keep like shuffling the deck, so to speak, because
to get as many
everyone
setups as
parameters will
possible.
improve.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, where there's like, okay, in order for me to both A, enjoy the story, and B, be efficient, I'm encouraged to do the same thing rather than different things. I guess that's where I'm trying to get at, is that
No, I
something
actually
like
get
that.
that.
And yeah, so I do get where you're coming from in terms of like, yeah, I could have done this, but I'm not really incentivized to, so I won't. And that's not entirely on you.
Again, this is this feels like fan fiction game developer version where in the menu you can actually check out all the different conversations that you see between characters. So like if you go to the menu for like Shigen and Akazu, there's like literally like 25 conversations that I saw between them. I learned everything about those 2 characters. If you go to any other pair, it's like 1 or 2 because I like messed with them a little bit. And if there was some incentive to like see those conversations, like each conversation you see gives you a small bonus or something. You do get an item, like a small little currency item for seeing the conversations, but it's like not worth it. You get them plenty of other ways. But if there's any reason to like, see all the different pairings in some way, yeah, then I would have more incentive to do that, but there's just not. Other than, just learning about the characters. So basically my kind of thesis is, as I was playing through the game, was I don't really like the 2 character, combat pairing. I don't really like the 2 sword switching. I don't really like the 8 character like choice that you have to make. I don't feel like any of these things really work in the game's favor, but they're all the things that the game is trying to do to make it unique. And that's just unfortunate, where it's like it feels like the main ways in this game is trying to stand out and do something different are all ways that I think don't actually work very well. So that was kind of like the conundrum I was in. But I want to end my section on a positive note. One thing that I really, really, really liked about this game, and probably it is my favorite part of the game. So each time you go back to Shinju Village, you can see various scenes with the different townspeople there, like the villagers. There's the school teacher, there's the blacksmith, there's the dojo, there's the shopkeeper, and then there's the carpenter, and like all these characters are just like people living their lives in this world. And it's important to note that like as you proceed through the game, like I said before, there's like a weird timeline jumbling going on here. Time will actually jump forward like decades at a time, or maybe 1 decade at a time. So you're kind of seeing a glimpse of these people's lives, just in small pieces of their lives, like over the course of their entire lives, just small little bits and pieces here and there. And you kind of see the passage of time through the glimpses or through these characters. And there's a very evident theming that comes up here, and a very personal theming in this village, in this one village, where it's just people finding their purpose in life, about leaving a legacy, about the next generation, about basically what you can do now for posterity, for the people who come after you, things like that. And it's actually pretty poignant in places and sometimes moving in places. Like, for example, there's the school teacher who has to deal with a rowdy school child who like loves to play pranks. And then over the course of the game, that child becomes a teacher themselves and kind of learns like about like she gains respect for her teacher, and she has to deal with new students of her own about the passage of time there, and basically kind of grows as a person, even though they never get quite over their prankster attitude. And it's nothing like groundbreaking or nothing like epic or like high stakes or anything like that. It's just kind of like these little personal stories throughout the village. There's a woman that you meet who runs the cafe, and she's trying to develop a recipe, and she's not doing very good at it. And then over the course of her life, she never really figures it out, but she passes down her cookbook to her daughter. And then her daughter passes down the cookbook to her daughter. And by the end of the game, you have this character who's now running the shop basically talking about like how great her grandma was, like finding all these recipes and how that was able to basically grow her cafe to be this well-loved, beloved cafe. And you got to see all of that in bits and pieces. And then there's like the dojo master trying to find an apprentice, and they have 2 apprentices they have to find that they're training, and you have to pick between one or the other. And there's a little mini conflict or story that takes place there. And Towa is not concerned about the world at large. Like, nothing outside of Shinju Village matters. Not really. It's all about this one little village. And learning about these different characters, there's another pair of characters who were like childhood friends that grow up, fall in love, have their own child, who are basically the family of the blacksmith. And these are the kind of things that I actually felt like the game, I really liked seeing each of these interactions. So every time I got back from a run against the Magatsu demons, I really was looking forward to this, seeing the new scenes with the characters and learning about them. And the art style is great. I love a lot of the character designs. I love I actually think the localization is quite good also, as well as the English voice acting. And that was my favorite part of the game. It's not really like a story, like a front to back, like here's the main narrative, but it's a bunch of like mini stories about the villagers and their passage over time. The last thing I'd have to say about that is, unfortunately, I feel like the ending of the game kind of betrays some of the themes that are brought up there, but I can't get into that because that would be spoilers. But that was my favorite part of the game. I think I said enough on that.
No, I'm listening to you say that, and you kind of rattled off like 4 or so just minor little story narratives, and I think sometimes those are like my favorite stories. Is not like a single cohesive thing, but more of an anthology of related stories, where that's not how games are designed most of the time. They're usually like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I'm not saying it's rare to do an anthology story, but it's just cool to see another game really tie into that in terms of this is how we're going to present it. And maybe anthology is not the right word, but the progression of time in terms of these are the things that you'll notice as you progress through the game. They don't tie to each other, but they tie to themselves through the different generations of the characters that you meet.
Boy, do I
The
have
way
a
you
video
describe
game
that,
for you. It is called
Oh,
Dragon Quest
Quest
7.
oh,
Don't worry about it, because Adam and I were talking about this last week.
well, actually, later on the podcast, we're going to talk a little bit more about Dragon Quest VII
Yeah.
Reimagined. But yeah, that was I have been lucky enough ever since the release of Dragon Quest XI to be introduced to that series and keeping up with it because it completely passed me by as it was releasing. And I've loved the the style of storytelling in those games, and the way that Adam's described Towa. I would probably play it on easy based on the way he's described it. Just to
Honestly,
experience the
that's a
story.
fair suggestion.
I don't know if
just
I will
play it on easy, just
but
to
like,
experience the tone and story and characters.
Yeah,
And
and
the
also
sword stuff.
just like I guess like props to Bandai Namco on like just pushing and marketing this game so heavily. Like they really took the forefront on like making sure this game was noted in front of people's eyes. Like they were very very proactive in just marketing this game out in the public.
Yeah, I don't want to hear
cool
anyone
see
say that this game didn't get marketing. It got a lot.
Yeah, definitely not. This has got a massive push from Bandai Namco. That's cool to see.
I actually never heard of it, so what can I say until Adam start posting that thing at the ending fonts at the end of their Snapchat.
Okay,
you should bookmark rpgsite.net and follow along.
Sean's like, I've never heard of this site. Who?
Yeah, I guess I do live under a rock.
That's funny.
Was this Brownie's debut title? I forget if you said that or not.
No, they released a couple of games. I think the most recent game they did was Eglia, Legend of the Red Cap, which is on Switch.
Oh, you said that.
Yeah.
I remember now. My bad.
I'm not sure. I don't think Brownies has done a whole lot else. I'm trying to Google Brownies game developer. No, I'm not looking for a recipe.
Nice.
Now I want some brownies. Let's see.
Brownies are good.
So yeah. They did help out on Doraemon Story of Seasons with Marvelous. Eglia
this is ringing a
Rebirth.
bell. Yeah.
They did a game called Seventh Rebirth, which I'm not familiar with what that is. Mobile game. Let me go to Brownie Brown because they kind of like spun off of Brownie Brown in a way. I know they did. They did they were a co-developer on the original Fantasy Life, and a co-developer on one of the Professor Layton games. I guess I didn't realize they were also a developer on Mother 3, Sword of Mana, Heroes of Mana. So yeah, some of the Mana games. A few different things.
And you put up your review for
again.
Towa and the Guardians of Sacred Tree up on the site.
So I gave it a 6 out of 10 because I did like the characters and the look of it, but like I said, there was a lot of things I just didn't. It's kind of weird. Like I gave like I was actually thinking about this earlier. I gave like Mandragora a 6 out of 10. Mandragora a 6 out of 10 earlier in the year. That game was a game that kind of like left a distaste in my mouth. It's kind of like, this doesn't really fit, doesn't work. Maybe a few things I liked, whatever. But Towa kind of leaves me like more like bummed out. Like, man, I wanted to like this more than I did. Like, there are parts of it that I think are worthwhile, and I'm not going to tell anyone, just play Hades. Like, no, I think you should maybe try this if you're interested in it. I do think playing on easy is just fair, just to experience it. But yeah, it just kind of more bummed me out. Like, I wish it was better. I wish I liked it more. Maybe is a better way to phrase it. I wish I liked it more than I did.
And that for our podcast is the end of the discussion on the reviews that we had go up this week for podcast participants. So we do have a few more articles get put up for some other reviews and impressions. One of which is another game that released early in September, Shuten Order. I don't think you guys talked about this last week because Cullen was reviewing this for us and just put it up last, looks like Wednesday. So Cullen's Shuten Order review up on the site. And I'll be honest, I've not read through this yet, so I do not know like what his main takeaway was. Adam, did you edit the review or no?
I did.
Okay. Do you have like a 1-sentence summary? Like I don't want to, since I haven't had a chance to read it. I don't really know what his thesis was in terms of Shuten Order.
The major criticism was actually, I'm just going to jump to this. it was the game's localization.
Ah.
I saw some examples online, and this is the type of localization that just felt like very, very quickly, hastily done. I'm gonna guess the localizers probably didn't have a lot of time or budget to work with. I don't want to put all the blame on them, but it's just like they didn't give it the resources they needed to have I would like some of the things I saw like weren't even like acceptable, like text boxes or text rolling out of boxes, pronouns being completely errored, like they're just the wrong, like like just dialogue that just didn't make sense because it was just wrong, it was just errored. And I know people actually brought this up, and like there's actually like a part of the game that has to do with like a transgender type of character, or at least like a certain like a gender issue, and then like there's errors in like the pronouns there, and it's just like, okay, this is definitely where you don't want errors. But it's just like,
Yeah.
and it just that's even beyond just things where just like things were stilted and stiff and just didn't quite sound right and just didn't flow well. I saw that they
I think a
put out a
small update,
patch for this.
you're gonna get to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how much they improved it, but it was just one of those things that I saw a lot of people talking about when this game came out. Was just like one of the worst or weakest localizations recently. So, and unfortunately, it's one of those things. Like even if it is patched out, it's like that first impression, right? Kind of that matters.
Right. Yeah. I believe.
Yeah,
I believe
isn't-
that update. That update did at least rectify the misgendering and the localization for that for the trans character.
That seemed really
that was
egregious, right?
that's one of the that's one of the urgent like fixes that they decided. Hey, just has to get fixed immediately. So hey, props to them for trying to get that fixed out as ASAP. Obviously, a lot of the issues still remain, but at least that got fixed. Something that probably should have never happened in the first place. But obviously this will take time to kind of polish up. They've already acknowledged, hey, this is they're gonna work on improving this over time.
Yeah, I jumped to that first because it was the most kind of like obvious like flaw,
Right.
like at launch. Like if you were looking forward to it and buying it, you would have encountered it right away. Now I feel I don't remember if we actually really introduced this game very much. This is from Tokyo Games, so it's got Kodaka on it as like a writer or a producer. I think he did some writing also. So similar development, or at least key staff to 100 Line and so on, but a different game from Spike Chunsoft and Tokyo Games. It is an adventure game, but it's kind of its gimmick is there are 5 different routes that you go on. They're each with like a different like ministry of horror or whatever. Like there's 5 different routes you play, and each one is like its own genre. One is like a dating sim, one is like a horror sim, one is like more pure adventure, one is escape room, and I forget the other one. But there's 5 different genres, and one of Cullen's another one of his criticisms was that like some of these routes of the 5 of them feel like the pacing's a little weird. Like you kind of spent too long in each of them, or just felt like it wasn't. It just felt like I guess the game itself, didn't quite know what it was doing in terms of like making sure that the variety was there and things like that, and that it was just the way that the game was structured. He had some criticisms there, and Cullen was was planning on scoring it lower than he did, but apparently it's one of those games where if you can kind of get past the kind of cruddy localization and maybe some of the pacing stuff and some of the story kind of not being so interesting here and there, apparently the ending was like really, really, really good to him. Like he was like, I love how this all came together in the end. So much so that like it made it worth it. It was the type of game that like he wasn't really like enjoying it all too much. Like it was fine going through it, but then when he got to the end, he was like, I don't know what the ending is. I haven't played it. Just something about the ending made it all worth it to him, and he was like, that actually that elevated everything.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of like many games that like that I've played that like where I thought the journey up to like let's say 30 hours to like the finale, and then up until that point like somehow the 1 or 2 hour finale, hypothetically speaking, like redeems like the rest of the journey up until that point. So I'm curious enough on his word to like give this game a shot when like it's kind of fixed up to like an acceptable state, to see what it's all about. Because I struggle, in my opinion, to think of like many games that like
I
struck
could
the
think of
finale
one,
so hard
but
that
it's a very boomer
really-
game that no one heard
Oh
about.
yeah, oh yeah.
Seventh Saga for the Super Nintendo.
Okay, fine, fair. I haven't heard of
yeah, I was saying I'd comment, but I don't know about it. But
Try
yeah,
me.
you're right.
Like,
It's
you're
so
right.
it's so much easier to go the other way, where an ending doesn't tie things together, or it feels like the ending was written separately from the main game, or it doesn't feel like it flows. To go the other way and say like, "Oh, I'm not feeling it," but wait, man, everything that the game did really ties together here. That's hard to do, or that's rare. I'll put it that way.
Looking at Cullen's, this is sort of Cullen's like strip line of the game where he says, despite some missed potential and a frustratingly poor localization, Shoot and Order lands with such a tremendous note that it's worth experiencing. What it lacks for cohesion, it makes up for in spirit. And he basically his review is actually kind of a fun review because he's like, it's kind of like his personal experience through the game where he's like, first I decided to go on this route where I did this, where I did this genre of game or whatever, and after that I decided to check out the biggest diversion from a normal visual novel, the stealth action horror, and kind of goes into it each like his route path, like his route tree. Like first I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. It's actually kind of a fun little kind of his journey through this game because you can pick and choose which like your own order if you want. So.
But I thank you, Adam, for kind of stepping in for Colin Stead on covering his review. But yeah, check out Colin Shuten, I believe that's the way I've been pronouncing it. Shuten Order review from Spike Chunsoft and X Noah up on the site rpgsite.net. We had a couple other kind of impression pieces up on the site before we get into a slightly smaller slate of news here. Here's one last lingering one from PAX that Scott put up called Draco and the Seven Scales. It is very much a game built in the vein of like a Game Boy Color top-down Zelda game, like the original Link's Awakening. That seems like very clearly what Draco and the Seven Scales is, an indie game that's modeling itself after. And then we have a couple features here. So we have that feature up on the site, and then we have a couple features here from Mikhail. You have one comparison feature for Dragon Quest III HD2D Remake. That one's up on the site. But I'm more interested in your port impressions for, I hope I pronounced this right, Cladoon X3, which just released. Or sorry, is it going to release next week?
Yeah, it's releasing next week. It's one of the rare NIS developed, NIS America published games because it's like people joke about how they've become Falcom USA, or at least did before Gung Ho had Trail's first chapter. But yeah, Cladoon is this series I had no idea about when I discovered it when I got a PS Vita, when I was looking at Disgaea and I saw this recommended and stuff like that, and I actually ended up playing it on Steam. It was one of NIS America's first PC things which they did, and it just feels like you're playing a PSP game on like a modern PC or whatever. And since I was playing it on handhelds, it was one of those moments or whatever. PC port is a little weird where it so here's the thing, like I had access to only the PC version, but I downloaded the demo for the Japanese console versions because I wanted to just see how it was over there, and like, because the PC version felt a bit weird, but it's not as bad as the console versions with these pixel games when they have these weird scrolling issues. It really bothers me, and I tried to fix it to some degree. I was able to. There's a weird thing in the game where it defaults to 60 FPS, but there's a 120 FPS option, but it says brackets unsupported over there. I don't know what that's about, why the option is there. Maybe it's a pre-release thing or not, I don't know. But yeah, it's a very interesting game. I hope they release a demo in the West, because I feel like it's not something a lot of people are going to buy like this week when it comes out with everything else releasing. And yeah, it's just a very interesting pixel action RPG mystery dungeon type thing. So yeah, I'm probably gonna be just jumping back into it on and off. I'm not deleting it, so I'll be going back into that. Uh, yeah, I also did a Towa handheld comparison thing to accompany Adam's review, and that is a Switch 1 game on Switch 2, and it is not a good experience on Switch 1. It's fine on Switch 2 because you can brute force, but yeah, Switch 1, it just feels like a hitching mess. Like right now, at least. I don't know if they've patched it since, because after embargo lifted, I already deleted it. But yeah. And the Dragon Quest thing is just lingering from like last week. We didn't get time to talk about it because with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 coming to like everything, including Switch 2, I just revisited Dragon Quest when it got its Nintendo Switch 2, like its enhanced backward compatibility thing, just to see what was going on, because I saw so much misinformation about this online. And I know usually, like, I follow this thing which Adam posted on Blue Sky, you need to let people be wrong online or whatever. But this was a good learning experience for me because I got the Elgato thing recently and I was just like using it to like compare stuff. So I went into the weeds with this and I like there's a comparison image in the article which literally has a PS5 performance, PS5 quality, Xbox performance, Xbox quality, Switch 1 handheld, Switch 1 docked, Switch 2 handheld performance, Switch 2 handheld quality, and like it's just an insane comparison of how the pixel art looks across all these devices. So it was like a combination of a learning experience and just to show this, because there's definitely going to be people curious how Dragon Quest 1 and 2 run, and I'm hopeful that the native Switch 2 version they do for it is better than the enhanced backward compatibility thing, but I'll have to wait till I actually get it to find out. So yeah, that's the Dragon Quest thing, which was comparing every single version of it. So, and just one last thing, I was able to, because I tested that before the Switch 2 patch happened. I actually have stats on how the Switch 1 version runs on Switch 2, and it actually had like a very good load time improvement just by backward compatibility. So it is good to keep seeing that happen for people who, like, you know, for like games which don't have an upgrade path or whatever. If they want to play the Switch 1 version, you are getting improvements over there. So yeah.
Summarizing like all of your comparisons between Switch 1 and Switch 2, it really does seem like it's kind of a crapshoot where some games run better on Switch 2 and some run worse. Like it seems like there's really no consistency from title to
Yeah,
title and publisher to publisher.
there's also weird stuff happening with specifically like just Square Enix, because if you look at tactics, there's the like Square Enix itself is pretty erratic in how it's handling these things, because you have like Tactics Ivalice Chronicles is coming out very soon. That has a free Switch 2 native upgrade, and the save data works because it's a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, like branded release. Then the release after that is Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. No save data transfer, no upgrade path for Switch 1. And then after that is Octopath Zero. No upgrade path, but save data does transfer over if you go from Switch 1 to Switch 2 versions. And then Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. Again, no upgrade path, no save data transfer. I don't know how they, like, I know why they decide what they're doing for the retail releases, because you can't have a keycard release unless you do, like, if you have an upgrade path, you can't do a keycard release. Like, we've reached that conclusion already. But I don't know like how they're doing the save data thing, because surely they can get save data working if they have a keycard thing, as we know with Octopath Zero. It's just unfortunate that like people who, like, if they don't want to buy a Switch 2 right now and they buy the Switch 1 version, and like, you know, eventually if they want to get better visuals, because HD2D visuals which are scaled poorly look really bad. I don't like that at all. And yeah, like people who are just buying one version or the other or not upgrading, it's just confusing. There's no consistency, like you said. So
Yeah, what Nintendo needs to start allowing, they need to pull a Microsoft, and they need to have a separate, not a Nintendo Switch 2 edition box, but a box for a game that works on both a Switch 1 and obviously works on Switch 2, and like it has a patch, but it's the Switch 1 cartridge. You know how like Microsoft had the Xbox 360, Xbox One like game cases, and that was like an official thing. There needs to be something like that.
So they do actually. They do actually with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Like that's not a game which we cover. It's out of our scope.
That's not what I'm talking about. They need to have a.
It's a weird thing because
I know what you're saying. They need to have a specific box for that. So because the reason why I'm assuming a lot of these companies are not allowing upgrades is they want to have a physical release for Switch 2. They want to have something that will be in a Switch 2 section of like a GameStop or a Target or a Walmart or something like that. So if somebody's going to buy a Switch 2 game and they don't know any better, they'll see that and they'll buy it. Now, is that actually working out? I don't think so. But Nintendo needs to let there be a box where it's like, this is not a Nintendo Switch 2 edition, but there's like a patch you can download like Dragon Ball or like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the box itself said like maybe it has like a Switch 1 logo and a Switch 2 logo, so you know it's for both, and it's not a
Yeah.
Switch 2 edition. This
I think
shouldn't be a thing that has to exist, but clearly it needs to exist now. It's stupid.
I actually was hoping,
Yeah.
you know, I was looking at Pokemon ZA because I'm buying that digitally, and I was looking at the physical box art for that because I like the key art, but then it just reminded me of how they've ruined the Nintendo Switch 2 edition box art with that disclaimer crap on the bottom with the QR code and stuff. And it, like what you said right now, having both logos, I just wish they did that for the Switch 2 edition. Like, just put both logos on the top and call it a day. That just tells you the game works on both. Simple, but yeah, it's just a mess. And like, yeah, I wish it was handled better. But Square Enix specifically, I don't know how they are deciding this for their games. Yeah, it's just weird.
I'm not surprised with Square Enix because they've moved over to they want to develop everything multi-platform. Like that was their whole shift that they made like about a year and a half ago, I think, at this point, something like that. But before then, it was just a complete crapshoot what games were going to release on what platforms. Like, was there any reason specifically why, say, like Harvestella was only on Switch and PC and it wasn't on like PlayStation at least? Not really.
I mean, then we have Bravely Default, which is remastered for current consoles releasing on Switch 2. Like, that was that weird press release thing. That's probably like a timed exclusive going by that wording. But yeah, I don't know. Like, you're right, they are inconsistent with even like what's happening right now with their releases. So we'll see.
Octopath Zero has a save data bonus if you have Bravely Default HD save data bonus. Which I guess for right now, that's just for the Switch 2 version.
Hell yeah.
So a Switch 2 exclusive.
sorry.
Save
So
transfer.
Bravely,
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if part of that PC gaming show Tokyo Direct is them saying, "Oh yeah," or the Microsoft Xbox TGS thing, because they've had announcements there for Square stuff. They'll just be like, "Hey, it's out on other platforms now, digital only, probably."
I fully expect it to come to other platforms eventually. I just don't know when. And Square Enix is really weird about this. When did Triangle Strategy come out for other platforms? Like just a month ago or whatever?
Yeah.
It came out on VR.
Yes.
On MetaQuest before it came to PlayStation and Xbox. Which, by the way, Mikhail, when are you going to update your article?
When you send me a VR headset, I'll do it.
Yeah, when Valve revealed their new VR thing.
Oh so
rumored.
Here's my prediction for Bravely Default. If it's at the Xbox or PC gaming thing, I think it'll be if it's at the Xbox. I think there's going to be a bundle which has Bravely Default HD Remaster and Bravely Default 2 coming to Xbox and PS5 at the same time. That's my prediction. They'll do a bundle with both and say, here, get both of them together. And for PC, if you already own Bravely Default, you get some discount because they'll do that, like complete your bundle. Maybe they'll force people into various day life again. They love doing that. So, yeah.
And all of those features are up on the site. As always, if you click on rpgsite.net and hit the features tab, you'll see everything from the new reviews, Trails in the Sky, Towa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree, Shoot in Order. You'll see the Cladoon and the Dragon Quest, console-specific impressions. You'll see the lingering PAX previews. And coming up, we're going to have a bunch of TGS previews because, James, you're going to be heading there, right?
Yep, and I can confirm because pretty much everything outside of like specific interviews, which I can't say who I'm interviewing for what games yet, but pretty much every game that I'm going to be playing at the show is also publicly playable. So I am going to be playing Monster Hunter Stories 3 because that is something that Capcom confirmed that was going to be playable at Tokyo Game Show. So I can say that. I am going to be playing the level 5 stuff, which would be Inazuma 11, and I'm going to do Professor Layton again, even though I did it last year. But it is the Switch 2 version this time, so I can actually check out the mouse controls. That feels like that's going to be really good for that. Even if it isn't multi-platform, that'll be the best way to play. And then there's obviously other things. Nothing specifically Square Enix because, Josh was just at PAX and everything.
Yeah, if it's the same stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. Koei Tecmo stuff, like Neo 3. There's a build there, and then they did confirm like Hyrule Warriors is also playable, so there's that as well. So a bunch of things.
And Kite has been doing an excellent job covering all of the different. I have this listed at the bottom of our little outline here, but I'll just list it here at the top. The title of the article is Tokyo Game Show 2025 list of expected RPG related streams, and Kite has it by date, by publisher, who is showing what, starting on Wednesday the 24th Japan time, going through the whole weekend in terms of when is Sega showing off their RPG games, when is Square Enix showing up multiple times to show off the same things that showed at PAX, when is Neo 3, Microsoft has a presentation, Sony has a presentation, Konami has a presentation for the new Suikoden titles. There's some other things that I'm kind of surprised right there, like 2K is going to show off Borderlands 4. I mean, an opportunity to platform the recent release, they're going to take it. PC Gaming Show is going to have a Tokyo Direct on that Sunday. So bookmark that if you're trying to keep track of all these things as they go live.
There's definitely like still some surprises in store. Like there's still a few Sega stuff that they haven't announced yet that are still mystery titles. And then there could very well be they plan on showing off maybe the Persona 4 remake again. Sometime in Tokyo Game Show, who knows? There's gonna be new stuff for Code Vein 2. There's already gonna be like Bandai Namco already announced like a dedicated Code Vein 2 stream with new info is gonna be there.
Sega is going to announce Vanillaware on PC.
That's right.
Oh yeah. You heard it here first.
There we go.
Reputable news source, RPG site. You said it.
But we only have our cross our fingers and toes for that one. And that's literally everyone wants that. Then we have an RGG Direct as well. I think the big announcement there has already been leaked. Unsurprisingly, though, I mean, Yakuza Kiwami 3 seems to be officially leaked from RGG Studio, so we'll probably have info on that, and Mikhail and I can talk about it there. It's gonna be interesting stuff. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of anything else that like sticking out. That's I don't know. They might have a Dynasty Warriors 20th anniversary thing. I don't know if they're gonna announce that. We already know a new remake/remaster, some re-release of a previous Dynasty Warriors game is coming. They might announce it there at Tokyo Game Show. Other than that, I mean, nothing. We'll see. Who knows? Tokyo Game Show is a very sometimes it's Pandora's box. And sometimes when you open that, it's nothing surprising. But then sometimes it's like just out of freaking nowhere. There's some announcements. Tokyo Game Show is always a mystery at times.
As for actual news and headlines this week, not a lot, but a handful of things. The first one here, I'm probably going to need some help teeing up. This is a new game from a new IP from Nippon Ichi Software that we first learned the project name, and I think we got some very initial art back in March, but it was fully revealed just this last week. Kyouran Makaism. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Kyouran Makaism.
Thank you so much. And basically, it seems to draw a lot of inspiration from games I haven't played. So when I look at this, I'm like, all right, I got to explain this to the audience of the podcast. And I'm like, it's Disgaea Dynasty Warriors, maybe. I don't know. That's me looking at the trailer and being like, that's the vibe I get. But I don't know if that's actually.
I see the character. Yeah, this guy character designer Takehito Harada is working on it. So obviously, it's understandable when people see this. It's like, oh, it's this guy. But it's like you said, very much like it looks like a Dynasty Warriors type style game. Like when I saw this trailer, I was like, it looks like the game's like on fast forward. But maybe it's just a fast paced game, and it looks really cool. I guess it's like when I see it, it's very much like you said, a Mosu style, but almost Disgaea numbers. Like you see absurd stats and numbers coming out of that trailer. And it's like, yeah, they're definitely leaning in that direction. Like there's an action RPG Mosu style, maybe not necessarily Disgaea, like in terms of like a whole party system, but from the visuals, from the massive amount of enemies on screen, and you just like hacking and slashing through them, in real time, they're definitely leaning in that direction. I think it looks fun. It looks a very
I
very whimsical.
mm, I wish I could feel that. I wish I could feel that good about it. I like the idea in a vacuum of this guy like Dynasty Warriors. It feels like it would fit very well. But I took one look at that trailer, not even accounting for the baffling auto dubbing stuff that YouTube was trying to force on people. I didn't get that. Just the animations just look so stiff, and it just doesn't look good to me. It's like
Yeah, I can see that. I mean,
it just looks so stiff and lifeless. I just can't feel any excitement for it. If that's how, because this is out in 4 months. If this is how the animations are gonna look, I just can't. I just can't. Like we've gotten cheaper like Dynasty Warriors like knockoffs like
I come from a history that I've played like the worst like Dynasty Warriors knockoff. So my vision, like my perspective is skewed because I've played worst looking Dynasty Warrior knockoffs.
Tamsoft could not have been that expensive to license out to help develop this, and they do well with their animations.
I mean, look,
And one thing that James said that I didn't quite introduce yet is that this has a release date announced for Japan. It is coming out for Switch, Switch 2, and PlayStation 5 in late January 2020. So yeah, only a few months
yeah,
away for Japan, and it'll probably be a late summer, autumn release in 2026 for the West, if I had to guess, based on like the Disgaea cadence or the Nipponichi cadence in general.
no, I'm not gonna say there's like gonna be a classic like hit or like gonna be an excellent game, but like for me, I was like, I don't know, it'd be fun. For me, it's like a mindless hack and slasher, might be fun sort of game, you know. Like I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm coming into this expecting like it might be not the best game, but it might just be fun to like just kind of play play here and there. But that's yeah, because I come from a background that's like I've played a lot of like Mosu games, both good and bad. So
I've played the first Hyrule Warriors, and that's it.
there you go.
So I'm not the person to talk to it. This next one I saw shared in a Discord, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And I have not followed since that initial reaction. A Dragon Quest game announced for mobile called Smash Grow or Smash /Grow. Um, what is this? I will just be honest. I saw this and I was like, I have no idea. There's
Like
some
RPG
top
mobile
down like
game.
I was like
It
tower defense. No.
maybe a little, but like from what I looked at the teaser trailer that they released, they mentioned it's a roguelike RPG. So like when you're going through waves, you do have like the what you can choose like 1 out of 3 like upgrade options to like power up your
Mhm.
character. They release some character designs and all that stuff. Like the perspective and how you play sort of kind of reminds me of Dragalia Lost. So I made the joke among my friends like, hey, it's Dragalia Dragon Quest. Um, but I mean, as with all these things, especially Square Enix mobile games, it's like who knows how long this is going to be in service, how they're going to monetize this game. I don't know if they're gonna like. They're definitely have a gotcha system. I don't know if you just gotcha characters and or weapons, in it, but it's another Dragon Quest mobile game. They've had tons of these already, and a lot of them have an end of service, and this will just follow this cycle. They're roguelite RPG might be fun for a bit, but don't get your hopes up that that's gonna be like the next big thing.
Something that's gonna have like a true like anchor or tether that's gonna stick
Yeah.
around a while.
Right, especially because like Square Enix is weird because they've been like historically in the past few months they've been kind of on a tear of like like closing down a lot of their mobile games, even like long running ones. They're not so like it almost seemed like they were wrapping it up on their like a lot of their mobile endeavors, at least
Mhm.
the ones that have been going on for like more than like 5 years or so, and even more recent ones that have only been up for 2 to 3 years. So them like releasing more new mobile games, I don't know what their strategy is like in terms of like doing this because it feels like it'd be easier to keep long running ones going instead of like making new ones and hoping those hit. But they already have ones that were, I guess, reliable revenue streams. I don't know. I don't know.
And yeah, no other details other than that initial announcement that it's in development for mobile. And then Josh, I'll let you take this last one. It's an announcement of a specific compilation release coming out for Switch.
Oh yeah, so Sting was teasing this for like for several hours on their social media, but I guess they're releasing Baroque-Ya. It's like a compilation release of several Baroque titles. And for people who don't know, Baroque is such an interesting game. It is a roguelike before roguelikes existed. It came out originally on the Saturn back in I believe 98. Um and it is such a like it's a post-apocalyptic 3D action RPG with a roguelike progression where like there's this mysterious tower that you're exploring and going through.
This isn't here or there, but I want to just point out that the original Rogue released in 1980.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. I mean,
I get your point.
yeah, like contemporary
Before they
roguelikes as we
became like
know
in
them.
vogue.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. Yeah, there's not like this is a roguelike before everything else as we understood them.
No,
Like,
I
even
understood
when
you, but
maybe
there's
think about
always going to
Dragon
be cynical
Quarter.
listeners or
Right.
listeners who
Yeah.
take the least generous interpretation of anything possible.
You're right. But and it is such like an interesting like vibe of a game where like people it is a very hit or miss type of game because like this was like when those systems were still like not modernized or still pretty native in their form and like the way that like you interact with 3D action RPGs and the way that you interact with enemies and progression systems where death in this game can be pretty brutal and you feel like you have to start from the beginning again and you don't have much to work with. It's very much like it doesn't have like, hey, I'm gonna upgrade these things over time through each loop or whatever. And it has such an interesting story about like just the nature of like how this post-apocalyptic world came to be and everything. So, this is a re-release of that game, like it with with other Baroque titles that I wasn't really aware of. Like I like the Baroque the original game, that came out on the Saturn, and it came out in the West on Wii and PS2. I don't know if the PS2 version came over. I think it did, but those are remakes, and the remakes are more. They have a different art style. They're more modern anime-esque art style. So for people who like the original, like that remake is a bit of a hit or miss because it also changed up a few stuff that kind of went away from the original spirit of that title. Um, but this compilation of Baroque-Ya is has the original release on Saturn, not the remake, along with Baroque Syndrome, which was a visual novel, Baroque Shooting Reversed, which is a shooter, and Baroque Become a Meta Being, which is like a jumping action game. Um, and Kite all laid that out. Unfortunately, it is only coming to Japan on Switch on December 18th, this compilation. The Baroque the original Baroque game, the 3D action RPG, already released on Switch prior on the Japanese eShop, like in late 2020, and it'll just have that version in this compilation title. But it's not like a new release with that or anything, because that art, like the bigger thing is like, hey, they're re-releasing this thing along with other Baroque titles, and that's really cool. And everyone who knows this game, like, always is crossing their fingers, like, please have an official localization of like that original Saturn release, because that never got an official release outside of Japan, and that was such a really really cool game. Hopefully, they plan to release this game, this compilation at least, outside of Japan. Hopefully in the future, and for other platforms besides the Switch as well, because I think people are more understanding now more than ever of how a roguelike structure is, that this will find like a newfound audience that will grow to appreciate it and have like a new cult following, like a resurgence of it. I also think about this like with Dragon Quarter as well for Breath of
I was
Fire.
just about to bring up Dragon Quarter.
Yeah, yep. Where I think people would have a newfound appreciation of that because that style of gameplay is the audience is more understanding of that now than they were back. So yeah, Baroque, pretty interesting game that more people should.
I think Sting might bring it out because they've been releasing a lot of weird stuff and localizing stuff or like Steam and then releasing it on Switch around the time or maybe a bit later. So maybe they'll bring this out on Steam when they plan on doing a localization for it. So
Hopefully, I would love that. That would be fantastic.
And that's really it for like announcements, but we have a few updates for some games that were announced last week or are coming up to release in the next couple months. This one, you talked a lot about the announcement of Dragon Quest VII Reimagined last week with the uh, Nintendo Direct. Adam, I guess I'll hand it off to you because you know specifically what was covered last week and what we have two things here. We have an official newsletter from Square Enix just detailing just the project itself, and then some comments from Yuji Horii about Dragon Quest Reimagined and what you might be able to interpret from them. So I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so Dragon Quest VII Reimagined was announced at the Nintendo Direct last week. It's coming not only to Switch and Switch 2, but also PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. This week, they basically released kind of like it's what Square Enix actually calls a media kit. And it's like, here's your first media kit for Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. So it's a lot of stuff that, like, especially if you're familiar with Dragon Quest, you already know, but like, here are the characters. It does give us our English voice actors, and I'm sure you can find the Japanese voice actors. I actually do not recognize any of the English voice actors, which I actually am not. I'm fine with that. Like, give me someone I've never heard before. I'm cool. But then, like, here's the battle system. It shows lots of different screenshots of the battle system. It's got that diorama, doll-shaped characters and style, and it looks really great. And there's some screenshots of like the user interface, there's some parts of the user interface that look classic Dragon Quest and some that do not. I've seen mixed thoughts either way on that, but a lot of screenshots for the game there. There's also some overview about some of the DLCs. There's one that has like character or enemies from the original Dragon Quest or the Erdrich trilogy. There's a DLC that allows you to dress up as the characters from Dragon Quest XI, and then a few other things, and that's all detailed. But yeah, this media kit just kind of goes over like the basics. There are a couple of comparisons they made directly. I'm sure you can find a lot of these online also, but like, here's a screenshot from the PlayStation 1 version, here's a screenshot from the 3DS version, and here's a screenshot from the reimagined version. So you can kind of see both the original, the first remake, and now this remake. So that's always cool. But yeah, just a broad overview, really.
Yeah, the most interesting parts in terms of like new stuff is like when they detail like the vocation abilities with the let loose and
Oh yeah,
when you're and all that stuff. Like that's definitely I believe new to this remake. Just expanding like some aspects of the battle system. Obviously, the big one there is you can have 2 job vocations on each character now, so that'll definitely like fundamentally switched up how the battle system ebb and flow works. There's stuff like, hey, when you're out in the overworld and you hit enemies and you're over leveled, they'll instantly die. So I think more and more RPGs now are adapting this approach of like, hey, you don't really have to worry about like battles that like against weaker enemies anymore. Like if you hit them out on the field, they'll just instantly die. You get all the rewards as if you fought them through the turn base. I think that's just more. There's more becoming more of a trend in RPGs now, which is fine.
I think it's a good trend. When the battle is basically a foregone conclusion, just skip it. Right? Like you win. So.
Well, technically they have it back in the day, except they just run away instantly. Just
they get scared.
Right?
Yeah, they get scared. Yeah, like it's not a new thing. Definitely older RPGs did it, but like this how RPGs now are implementing it. Like it's become more of a palette, like more of a standard.
It's an old game now, but it's not an ancient game, and this is a weird comparison. But Shin Megami Tensei 4. That game was probably one of the worst that I've experienced, where like those enemies, those little like sprite things, they're little blocky guys, will chase after you to the ends of the earth, even if they're like 50 levels lower than you. And you have to fight them. Like, go away. Like, you stand no chance. Stop chasing me. They fixed this in
I run into that
Apocalypse.
problem often with Yakuza titles. I can't name specifically which one, but I'm just like, I can kill you in 2 hits. I'm running through Come Roadshow, please don't chase me. Leave me alone. I don't want to fight you. If I do fight you, it'll be over in an instant, but I really don't want to fight you. But they're chasing me anyway, and yeah, it's annoying.
But anyways, yeah, like the moonlighting dual vocation thing and the let loose, these Dragon Quest remakes are, at least going off of 3, are definitely not afraid to mix up the balance. And I know I know some people who say they don't like Dragon Quest III HD2D remake because the balance is way off. And like, I can't argue that. It's so different than the original. Like, especially in this game, it's gonna have 2 different vocations now. Like, how is that gonna work? Like, you can do a lot of different things with that now. I don't expect it to be anywhere close to the version I played, right? It's just something new.
Yeah.
It's reimagined, right? So,
The more meteor thing here, Adam, though, is what Kite translated. There was some talk going around of Horii, our good guy, our guy Yuji Horii, running his mouth again.
yeah, so I actually saw on social media, Zenithian Trilogy confirmed. That's 4, 5, and 6, if you're not aware. I'm like, wait, confirmed? Huh? What happened? So what happened is Yuji Horii went on a talk show that he's been doing for, I guess, pretty regularly. It's a Japanese talk show. I won't even try to say the title, but basically this was after the announcement of the game in the last week here, and one of the participants on this show, this YouTube show that you can just watch in Japanese right now if you want, basically remarked to Yuji Horii, kind of like a curiosity, kind of like, so this isn't 4, 5, and 6. You just jump straight to 7. Like, this is 7, not 4, 5, and 6. Which is kind of just like a relatively innocuous comment. Like, oh, okay, we did Dragon Quest 3 remake, and then 1 and 2 remake, and then we jumped to 7, right? And then Yuji Horii commented, and this is the key one, and this is Kai's translation. A lot of things are moving around, but it was just done first by chance. And then the other guy, his name is Masharito, was like contemplating this for a while, and he's like, a lot of things are moving around, but 7 was done first by chance. And then he says, so that does not mean that you're not doing 4, 5, and 6, because it sort of implies that. And then apparently Horii says, I didn't say it, like 3 times. So that's the crux of it, is he kind of implied a lot of things are happening and 7 was just done first by chance. That means that other stuff is also being worked on, it's just not done first. So
this is not the first time that Horii is yapped.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is a certified yapper. I remember back in the day, and I don't know if anyone here heard this specific story, but I remember back before I was actually doing games media stuff, I went to San Diego Comic-Con. I was talking with one of the Square Enix reps there, basically being like, hey, so are the 3DS versions of Dragon Quest 7 and 8 going to come over? And this was right around the time when Horii made that comment at, I think it was like Japan Expo, and where he said, oh yeah, we're doing it. And they said, that rep said to me then and there, it's like, we were not planning on doing it, but then he said we are.
This was going around social media. Like, I believe one of like the people who used to work on those localizations like commented on that too.
Yes.
That story as
Yeah,
well.
Dan
Like,
Seto, he used to work at Square Enix Europe, and Square Enix Europe usually is the one more involved with the Dragon Quest stuff, like with the voicing and whatnot, and the localization. But Horii basically, before a decade and a half ago now, confirmed or forced the hand of getting the 7 and 8 on 3DS, or at least 7 localized for the West. And if you remember, that game came out like 3 years after the Japanese release, so we had been waiting for it. And yeah, so basically, again, the key thing is Horii said 7 was done first by chance, which more or less implies that 4, 5, and 6 are also in the works, right? They just weren't done first. That's the key of it. And then there's a little bit further that Kite translates that basically says, the MC of the show asked, like, does that mean 7 Reimagined is progressing smoothly? And then he mentions, Dragon Quest IV, this is the MC, not Yuji Horii. So Dragon Quest IV has a lot of different story chapter divisions. Is that why it's taking more time? And then Horii just sort of laughs it off. Like maybe, is that true?
Oh, yeah, Hori's a funny dude with this stuff, because like Hori's in a unique special position where like
He's untouchable
Obviously,
in a way.
he can't say anything, but like, what is Square Enix gonna do if he does says something? It's not like they're gonna fire Hori or like.
Well, the thing
you
is,
know?
Horii is not an employee. He runs his own company that has an exclusive contract with Square Enix.
Yeah,
If he
yeah.
wanted to, and a friend of mine that I trust absolutely with this says, if Horii wanted to, he could take the Dragon Quest IP and have someone else do it. Like, it's not Square Enix's, it's his. So it could be developed by someone else. So Square Enix, if they were to like, they can't touch him because they'd lose Dragon Quest basically. So yeah,
That's crazy.
Can you imagine if that ever came, like somehow Sega or Konami or Bandai Namco
Yeah,
like we're releasing Dragon Quest now?
yeah. If you ever wondered why, like, you look at a screenshot for a Dragon Quest game and it says Armor Project, that's Horii's studio. That's who owns it. So
Yep. So. Hori. So, well, it could get one way or the other, but reading between the lines isn't hard here. But I'm just saying, if they ever, if Dragon Quest V does get remade, re-released, remade in some way that's somehow better than the previous releases of Dragon Quest V, it'll be one of the best games ever, man.
Dragon Quest V has been a situation where I want to play it, but it's like, do I play the PS2 remake or the DS remake? Because I like how the PS2 remake looks better.
Yeah, 5 is such almost in a similar situation to 7, where like the original release is awesome, but also dated, and also every subsequent release is like pretty awesome, but also doesn't necessarily replace the original for me either. So, who knows? The handheld version is pretty good.
There were 2 more update headlines for this week. At least there was more than 2, but 2 that we have called out here. One is for a recent release, one is for an upcoming release. This one kind of affects me in a small way. Raidou Remastered, of course, released in June, just a couple months ago. We covered it on the site. I believe a review was written by Cullen. Version 1.1, and we don't always cover like updates to existing games because a lot of it is pretty dry. But this one actually kind of touched on something that I thought was weird with the implementation, in that in Raidou Remastered, a decent chunk of content was stuck to New Game Plus, including like getting I forget what he's called, the Raidou flavored
Raiho.
Jack Frost. Yeah, what is it?
Raiho.
Yeah. He's unique to New Game Plus. There's a couple others that are unique to New Game Plus. There's at least one what they call like side quest.
I think
They
there's
give it a title in this
there's
game.
some of like the sword
that's
or
what
some
it
of some of the katanas that you can only make on a second playthrough. So there's a couple of things.
Yeah, and basically that was just interesting because I was super thorough on a first playthrough, and then on the second playthrough there is New Game Plus, but before barely anything transferred over. It would be like your summoner rank, and I think that was it. Like not even your gold transferred over, your money. Well, they overhauled that with this, where now your level, your stats, your money, your devil chart, your loyalty, which is like the only thing that previously carried over. Your forged swords will also be carried over, with some exceptions. I assume case related ones. Can be transferred over, and it's like, I know it's like it's New Game Plus. How much does that really matter? But it was kind of one of those things where I'm surprised it wasn't that way to begin with for New Game Plus. Because otherwise, it was just like, well, New Game Plus barely feels like New Game Plus because nothing carries over. It just feels like,
And especially when there's content in a second playthrough that's locked there. So it's kind of like, well, too bad for you. You're really thorough on your first playthrough. Well, you still don't get everything. You have to start over, and you really have to start over to get Raiho, or to get, to do those extra second game playthrough things. It was weird. So it looks like they also kind of buffed the, maybe you're going to get to this, Josh, a lot of the fusion with Victor. They've added a toggle for animation off on, and after Demon Fusion, will no longer return to the top menu. Shorten the animation for when reforging a sword. So it sounds like they're trying to just speed that up a little bit.
Definitely nice to have. Smart. I was gonna say it also addresses one of the main complaints that Cullen, our reviewer, talked about, like having toggles for the next objective UI, destination icons, and all that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can turn that off. Because like one of the things that like Cullen lamented about this remastered initially was like because of like modern sensibility hand holding, like for people who are more used to that stuff in the modern day, like you lose some of like the atmosphere of that game where a lot of the original game, it kind of left people, it left it up to players to kind of trust them and like, hey, talk to people to get to know where you go next.
Yeah, I mean, Raidou is a
being
detective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
coming from the same place. Yeah.
So, so you can now have the option to like toggle all of those off, and like you try to get some of that original feel of the game back. That
They also fixed the most egregious problem in Raidou.
Oh yeah.
Use your gun.
Yeah. Yeah. The final bullet is reduce frequency of Goto saying "use your gun."
If you
So,
played this,
correct.
if you played Raidou Remastered already, you know that Goto would say this. Like, I think what it was there are some enemies that were weak to the gun, but like you could easily defeat them without it. But no matter what, if it was, Goto would always say that, like every time you hit them, and it was just like, okay, Goto, shut up. So they're
Like, I know,
interesting
Goto. I'm
that.
choosing not to use my gun. Leave me alone.
The
other
one
game that
that
had an up.
go
Oh,
for
go
it.
ahead. Sorry. I was going to go to the next topic. Yeah.
Yeah, the other one that people will notice from this from this patch update is that your demons will no longer excessively use mag after a battle's over, so they just cast another spell after a battle's over. You just like have less mag because they decided to use them one after the battle ends. It's like always. It's like it's not the biggest deal, but it's like, come on, Demon AI, work with me here. And yeah, and some very small some battle adjustments for like keyed bosses. Like it's mainly some bosses in episode 1, and then the final one in episode 8, and then like the final episode, which is I haven't really done any of the math of like how they adjusted them, but I imagine some people will appreciate some of the balancing tuning, because some of them were kind of egregious with what they were demanding for the players, especially in episode 1 in that regard, where like it felt like you're just dealing very little damage for that point in the game very early on.
I played the game on the normal difficulty, so I don't know hard mode, easy mode, whatever. But I do. One of the bosses they say they adjusted was Mishaguji in episode 8, which I do remember that boss being one of the more challenging ones in terms of it's got like summons, it's got like invincibility moments and phases and things like that. So I'm gonna guess
Has
they
like
toned
bad
it
zone
down.
and pools as well. Like
Yeah,
their like positioning was very
hazards,
key in that
right?
battle.
So that was that's a pretty challenging battle overall. I'm gonna guess they toned it down, which I don't know. Like, I think it's fine to have a challenging battle, but I'm guessing
we're talking about SFT5 era Atlas here, where they had to tone down, the one
the
dungeon,
one
in
puzzle
SFT5.
dungeon, and not like the
The-
the simplest puzzles possible. And it's like, nope, this is too hard.
Just won't stop, complaining about it. So you know what? I'm just thinking of like, what's the next upcoming? I don't know, like Atlas RPG.
Is the only Atlas game that's announced Persona 4?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was
Yeah, I
like, is
believe
there
so.
any? What if they toned down Persona 4's dungeons somehow?
Well, they already made Persona 4 baby mode with Golden.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember when Yukiko's shadow didn't have a weakness? I remember.
Awesome.
But I have to imagine that Raidou 2 has to be on the cards. Like, I kind of feel like if you've already made this effort to like recreate Raidou 1 here, I feel like you're already like 1 foot in the road or whatever towards developing this. So, or the second.
Where was the Raidou 2 remake teaser trailer at the end of the Raidou Remastered?
Oh, you didn't get it? I
question.
got it.
Oh shit. Yeah, but I remember in the developer interview, I forgot if it was the director or producer, but in part of the marketing of Raidou Remastered was like their intent was to respark, reignite interest in the Raidou, IP, and hopefully release a whole new Raidou title in the process.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine after releasing Raidou 2, hopefully there's enough demand, or they're already in the works of doing it, but they're just saying it's in demand. Like kind of like how they marketed the episode, I guess, and Persona 3 Reload. We're like, we're only gonna do it if there's demand, and that's like it was always all in the works. It's very evident. It was always in the cards. So we'll see.
I kind of feel like Raidou didn't really leave much of a splash, but I didn't really expect it to either, right? It's sort of a niche property, like even from Atlas, even though Atlas is beloved. But when I posted this news update, this update for this the news for this update, I actually saw a handful of responses basically of people saying, this is just very anecdotal and very small, like, hey, I played Raidou and I loved it, so this is a really good update to see. Like, oh, I guess there's a couple people who tried it out and really liked it. So it's got, if you're into SMT or Persona and you kind of like these sort of, these spin-offs that are just kind of their own little thing, you might end up loving it. Some people did.
Yeah, I still think Raidou 2 is such an incredible sequel, but I really wonder because Raidou Remastered is okay now. It's pretty good for a re-release of the first game, because it a lot of the improvements from the second game made it over, was backported.
Yeah, it's less of a jump now.
Yeah. So I wonder what they do, if they were to do a Raidou 2 remastered. What could it instill that same, I don't know, feeling, because a lot of its improvements were already introduced here.
Yeah, the Raidou 1 to Raidou 2 jump originally was dramatic. Whoa, they really, really improved this game. It's a hell of a lot better now. And I still, it's probably still a better game, but the jump's not going to be as dramatic. So
it's a more interesting game because it'll still have the alignment system, which wasn't in the first. That was in the sequel.
The other game that has an update coming up is one we talked about at least, I believe, 2 weeks ago, that's slated to come out at the end of October. This is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. It kind of has ramped up its marketing for its final, change developer, all that sorts of things. It's finally releasing this year, a few years after it was originally planned to. And then even then, there was a lot of trepidation around it, especially around details and headlines like certain vampire clans were going to be locked behind premium purchases, like they wouldn't be included in the base game. And if I'm parsing this article from Mikhail correctly, they've reversed course to some extent, where they have stated that the Toreador and the Lasombra clans will be included in the base game. But then they also say they're also detailing the expansion pass and how they've already planned some story packs to come out through the middle of 2026, specifically called Loose Cannon and The Flower and the Flame, where I've never really liked this approach, talking about we're already doling out premium purchase chapters that are going to come out 6 months or more after the game releases. So yes, good that we're getting the clans in the base game, all 6, but then detailing the expansion pass and what you get in the premium edition, and having to have charts to show you what you get from each edition, standard, deluxe, premium. That always leaves a sour taste in my mouth. So good on one side of the coin, and kind of, to me, at least personally, a little bit frustrating on the other.
I feel like it's just go for it.
On that note, we didn't get a chance to play any previews for this game. I think it was at Gamescom, but I don't think Alex had a chance to play it. I have seen some previews for this game popping up in the last couple of days. I think there was some at Gamescom and some after also. And this one from PC Gamer, I think caught some attention. Here's the title of the PC Gamer preview for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is richly authentic, intriguingly written, dripping with brooding atmosphere, and not very fun to play, unfortunately. So,
and I think I know where you're going with next on that.
Well, considering the developer, that's not that surprising, because the developer, Chinese Room, doesn't do RPGs or action RPGs, right? So they're more about the narrative type game, the writing and that element of it. So that was my follow-up, was strength in the writing and the atmosphere is not too surprising given who's developing it. Were you going to go that the first game is sort of similar?
Yes, exactly. It's like, oh, so like the original then, because because the original was held together by
Duct tape.
spit and well wishes. It like falls apart in the last 3 chapters and wasn't polished before then, but it had the atmosphere. I'm not saying that excuses Bloodlines too, but it's just like it's arriving in a similar space, maybe from a different context, but I still think it's going to feel very different. But obviously, we won't know for sure until it's finally in front of us. Yeah.
I don't know. This is probably not going to be like my favorite game of the year, but it's like probably especially actually it might even be for the whole year. Honestly, like one of the most interesting games in a weird way, because it's just such a weird set of circumstances, like a cult classic game from a developer that no longer exists, and it's been reboot once or twice entirely from a brand new developer, from a publisher who basically said, we don't know what we're doing. No, they literally said that. We don't know how to do RPGs. They literally said that. So it's just, and they put a lot of time into it. I think it looks good. Like, especially some of the more recent screenshots. I'm like, this is actually a pretty good looking game. And I like the style of it, like how it appears, but will it play any good? The original game has obvious flaws. It's interesting to me. Anyway.
No, I'm with you. Like, even if it's terrible, I want to see how it ends. Like,
it's definitely one of those games that's like I definitely I'm interested in checking it out, but I'm not willing to pay the full price for that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I think just
you're not $70 curious.
Very little amount of games are $70 curious for me.
I think I've mentioned that like twice in the last couple of podcasts. I even forget for what games. I think one of them was Borderlands. But is this a $70 game? I'm gonna guess not, but let me check. I have no idea.
Good question. I do not know. Yeah, it's $60 for the base.
Only 60.
Quote unquote only 60. Yeah, I don't know. It's also, I was gonna circle back around to what you were saying initially. Also, Brian, is like that's just like modern reality of video games, especially RPGs these days, where like even before the game comes out, they already have like 2 or 3 story packed DLCs already planned and like have descriptions for it. Like I think of, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, hell of a game, but also did that, like the Lords of the Fallen did that. Smith, it's just think of like any modern like RPG, especially in the West, like has probably done that already. I think Borderlands has already, like, we have 2 Vault Hunters as part of this that will become playable and will have more shit in like the season pass or whatever.
Yep.
It sucks, man. Honestly, it sucks. I hate them games.
it's just interesting. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you're yelling at the sky. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
But I always kind of wonder, like, when you read these press releases, is who is reading like the paragraph. I don't want to sound so like uppity or snooty or something, but like, who is reading the paragraph where it's like, Loose Cannon, the name of one of the chapters, follows Bruja Sheriff Benny's brutal perspective, letting players experience his story of relentless pursuit. They will also unlock a Benny-inspired outfit for Fire, who is like the main character stand-in, when Loose Cannon launches. And people are like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm looking forward to
I'm sold.
See Loose Cannon. Because, yeah, I'm sold on this Bruja detective character. And to me, it just seems like, okay.
You want to know the reality of that? People don't really care about that paragraph description, but they do care about it being on the roadmap, infographic of the game. People care more about the average consumer, modern consumer these days, just wants to know that their purchase is going to be supported. Even if the game probably isn't conducive to this format, it has to be on the business side. Every game must have a roadmap now because players must feel ensured that their game is being supported. There can no longer be just like a one and done game. People can't.
And we've learned, it comes in all sizes. Games with excellent roadmaps turn out terrible. Games with poor roadmaps turn out great. Or you mix the Punnett square the other 2 ways. Games with great roadmaps turn out great. Games with poor roadmaps turn out poorly. It almost like doesn't matter, but it's how you got to market your game. Yeah. We're wrapping up here. We have one sales update for a recent release. I'm not sure if we've had a chance to speak about this. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, which released late in August, has hit 500,000 unit sale, 500,000, which I think for Story of Seasons is if it's not a series high, it's real close. Like this is real to me. I see this as, and I believe it's a really strong number for Story of Seasons.
Yeah, that seems like a lot for, especially for a Story of Seasons game that short of a amount of a time frame. Like that seems insane.
I think it's
So
Marvel. I've been checking out. I always check out like the financial results of these various companies, and I think stuff like Rune Factory and Story of Seasons, just in general, have been like really successful for Marvelous. So that's why they've been really going that route. Like there's Rune Factory 6 coming up. I'm sure there's going to be another Story of Seasons in the next 2 or 3 years, and they're really steady with those because they've been really successful for Marvelous. So
Yeah, they even mentioned that like both Grand Bazaar and Guardians of Azuma already hit like 500K each, like and like within like the same, just in a few months for both of them. Like I have to imagine Marvelous is like really happy at the performance of both of these titles.
a couple release dates. The Kaiju number 8 game, called Kaiju number 8 the game, will release on PC on October 1st. It has already released on mobile. This one, Brave Cross Junction, is going to release worldwide on October 8th for Switch and PC. Sorry, October 8th on PS5 and PS4, and then Switch and PC the next day on October 9th. This is an interesting one. Blue Protocol Star Resonance, which again is Star Resonance, but being put under the Blue Protocol IP, at least for the West, is launching on October 9th in Japan and the West.
You get
I'm sorry, that is not in Japan. North America, South America, Europe.
You can unlock exclusive Crunchyroll member benefits, as that's one of the headers on the press release. If you have a Crunchyroll membership, you'll get additional goodies like avatar frames and mounts. Aren't you excited?
Oh. Eh. HappyNet will bring the game Artis Impact to Nintendo Switch in spring of next year. This is a game that released early in August and was, I believe, solo devved title that was super thrilled that they reached 10,000 sales. Like this is a Pico project from an indie developer. So I think the main story here is that they found someone who's willing to help them with a console release of Artis Impact. So that'll happen next spring. So that is really cool.
Yeah, I there's one of the games that I've backlogged for this year that I really want to get to before the year ends. It looks lovely, but they've also just been gradually like introducing fixes and stuff. Like even as recent as as last Friday, I believe, is like another patch release for it. So when I find time, I think it's probably the right time to get around to it now that now it's had some patches and fixes. But games don't stop. Games don't stop right now.
And the last one I have is Card Ciel, which released on multiple platforms last year, is going to release on Nintendo Switch 2, get a Nintendo Switch 2 edition on January 29th. And then the looking forward to next week is basically Tokyo Game Show. So James, when do you fly out? I'm curious. It's got to be soon.
I fly out on Monday morning. The flight is scheduled for 10:45, but knowing LAX, I expect it no earlier than 11:30 probably.
Yeah.
Especially with all the stuff this year of flights, but still not going to stop me from getting to the airport no earlier than no later than 9 a.m. just to be on the safe side.
And LAX is a few times I've gone there. Sometimes security takes a while, so
always hell. that is the LAX guarantee. Always hell.
I am not looking forward to returning on the way back. That is the thing I am especially worried about, but we'll see.
Stay safe. Take care, and just have a safe trip all around, James. And yep, we'll get back to you, and you're safe and sound.
And then next week on the podcast, so I think we'll have the usual crew except James. We might talk about Hades 2 potentially. I'm not 100% sure. Of course, that's the big coming to 1.0 release next week. There's a few other. Go ahead.
I think the other thing that we can be able to talk about next week, I can't yet say that we can talk about them next week. So
It's an upcoming release.
Adam's are thinking really hard how to phrase that. That's awesome.
But yeah, next several weeks there's a lot of releases coming out. I'm just curious. Did you guys talk about Borderlands last week?
Not yet.
Uh,
After all the performance woes, I decided I'll just hold off on it until they get that all sorted out in
Yeah,
however many months.
I pretty
Yeah,
much
I was curious.
accepted that I would, since they did not send us code, and I'm gonna be so busy from TGS and then Pokemon and then whatever else is like October and November. It's like I'll play Borderlands 4 end of November. It'll probably perform
go.
better. It'll probably be in a better technical state. And I'll be honest, like from what I'm hearing outside of the technical issues, it's probably the best Borderlands game. So
Yeah,
I would like,
I've heard like the actual game itself is like pretty good.
so I would like to play it in a state where I will not be endlessly upset.
well, Brian, you've been playing it, right?
Oh yeah, I was
Little
just gonna
bit?
say I've been playing it. I've been playing it a little bit with my girlfriend, and I've never played Borderlands before, so at all. So the entire framework is new to me, but I'm enjoying it. I've not. It's not a ton of time, like maybe 6 total hours, but we're in like the first area of the map and just learning the scheme, the flow of things. And don't murder me, but I actually kind of find Claptrap kind of funny. Like I chuckle at a lot of the things he says. I know people either think he's really funny or really not funny. And to be, I don't know, I'm chuckling when he talks. So if that makes me a bad person, I apologize.
You have like your mind is fresh. That's why you're coming into it with fresh eyes, with a fresh mind. You don't have any of the baggage that previous
No,
players
I
have.
do not.
Well,
Yeah, I have no idea.
The thing with Claptrap is that the people that are annoyed with Claptrap, it's like that's the intended thing. He's supposed to be like that guy that's like this fucking asshole again. Grown.
But it's one of those things like but like he's intentionally overbearing, and it was like throughout multiple titles as well. This is like your first go at it. You don't have like the history of like multiple titles with this character.
Well, I'll report back if I in either way, and then you can choose.
We'll definitely reconvene
decide
around
me.
Borderlands 4, like for sure.
Yeah.
We'll
Like I said,
definitely
it's
get
like
around to it.
6 hours. Like I'm not
Mhm.
super deep into it. I'm in like
Yeah.
main quest number 3 out of 20 or whatever. But anyways, check out all the features up on RPG site, rpgsite.net. We have the Trails in the Sky first chapter review, Towa review, Shoot and Order review, all of the console specific impressions that Mikhail puts up, the lingering things from PAX. Obviously, keep your eye out for everything coming out of TGS. All the news stories in terms of like launch trailers, collaborations, all those sorts of things. Mikhail's really gone ham covering all of those very thoroughly. So keep that bookmarked if you're interested in following RPGs. You can find us on any of the social media networks. Just search for RPG Space Site, and you should be able to find us. If you listen to this podcast, leave us a rating, leave us a like, leave us a message. We'd love to see those. Join the Discord, discord.gg/RPG site. I think that's it. I think I covered the gamut there. Until you hear from us next week, just like we wished to James, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to y'all later.